Testing, 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the City Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the business meeting of the City of Truth or Consequences. It is now 9:05 on August 8th. I would ask you, if you have any type of device that's going to make some noise that you have on your person, could you please shut down the noise element on that? Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Kathy Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you, and please note for the record that Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead did speak to me and told me that she would not be able to attend the meeting. Next item on the agenda is silent meditation. Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Whitehead had an operation. She is home recovering, and she is going to have another operation and be home recovering. So she will not be here probably through our August meetings, and I ask you to keep her speedy recovery in your thoughts as we move to silent meditation. Thank you. Thank you. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Heschler, could you please lead us?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is approval for the agenda. I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Green, I'd like to make a couple of amendments to the agenda, if I may, please.
Sure.
Because of a presentation that we want to give, I would like to move item C, comments from the public, and item D, response to public comments, to under E, just after our first presentation. And since I don't see Mr. Tooley.
Yeah, but I think we should possibly do that if you don't mind, in case you present the presentation.
And under new business, I would like to move item number 2 to right after the consent calendar.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. Is there a second? Do we want to have a meeting?
I'll second.
We want to have a meeting. Second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is number E, is going to be a presentation on an update on our pool, and our presenter is going to be Tammy Gardner, who is the interim pool manager.
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Manager Fuentes. Okay. I'm giving an update today just to address everybody, let everybody know what's going on at the pool. We are still hiring. We've been advertising in the newspapers and on Facebook, and we've got a few groups that have been helping out with spreading the word. To stay open for winter season, we're going to at least need 2 full-time and 1 part-time. We have been advertising every week since July 1st again, because we were advertising and then we got full staff for the summer season, and then we opened back up advertising for the lifeguard cashier position on July 1st. So far we've gotten 2 applicants, one of which was a no-show, and the other one we're moving forward in the hiring process with background and all that stuff. We did have 1 apply for the head lifeguard, so I mean that makes 3 total, but one's the head lifeguard position and the other is the lifeguard cashier position. With most of the staff that we have right now, all but one is of school age and going back to school. So that would mean that it would be possible, and I'll show you guys a couple of scenarios that I have in the next slide, is different schedules. It would either mean if we can't get full staff, that would just mean winter season closure, not close down the pool completely, just winter season. Now, if we can get at least 1 or 2 more people on, we could do a modified schedule. As you can see here, there's a couple different scenarios. As far as right now, a couple of our employees may be able to work out their schedule to where we can keep the pool open after school hours. Something like what I'm showing here, lap swim 4 to 5, therapy and swim aerobics 5 to 6 on a couple days a week, and then another couple days a week offering some open swim, and then a Saturday. That's something that we can look at to finish out the summer season. There's different scenarios that we can work out, but that's only working with a couple of our current staff, and we'll have to see how it goes going further along with the process of hiring. We did have a couple of meetings with Friends of the Pool. This last meeting at the 26th, they seem to be on board with helping us get the word out a little more with trying to encourage more people to apply. We also have presented to the rec board about raising the pool pricing of the pool schedule. That's the next slide. Sorry. The last time there was an increase that came before the commission was back in 2012. We do believe that we understand that the pool's not going to make a significant amount to sustain it, but we believe that it would help to increase the revenue for the pool, which would help in many different areas. The rec board recommended that we do a public workshop on August 16th at 6 o'clock at the Parks and Recs building. I believe that's what that's called. To include the community in the fee scheduling. So that would be not this Thursday, not tomorrow, but next Thursday, doing a public workshop to discuss the pricing. Another topic that is kind of being in discussion right now is the heater. I'm not real sure when the heater was purchased. I've been looking for more information, and I can definitely find that information. But the heater, whenever I had IAB Mechanical come out in May, before we fired up for the summer season, they came out and did maintenance on the heater, and they deemed that this should be the last season, summer season, for this specific heater due to, in the report that he wrote, that I've given you guys all copies of, lack of maintenance, and most of the repairs are bigger than it's not worth repairing, is pretty much what IAB Mechanical is saying. Now, we did ask him for a couple of quotes, that way we would know what we're looking at. On the low end, not necessarily the greatest unit for our building, for our facility, is starting at about $18,000, and they've discussed other options at like $34,000. But that is another thing that we have to look at, that is another big expense that's coming up as well. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Nessler?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Morning.
Morning.
How many lifeguards do you need at the pool at one time?
It's a minimum of 2. We use the ratio, the national code does the ratio of 40 to 1, but in the city policies, we use the 1 to 20. So we like to have no less than 2 on the facility, not necessarily on deck at the same time, but no less than 2 at a time.
So one could lifeguard, the other could be lifeguard, cashier, or...
Correct.
Okay.
They could swap. They would swap in
They
between.
both have to be certified, obviously,
Yes, sir.
and would they be brought in at $11 an hour?
That's my understanding is $11 an hour.
Yes.
And maybe the friends can answer, but are any of the friends possibly interested in working at the pool, or maybe volunteering, or maybe helping fill that niche so that we can open that pool?
They've expressed volunteering as far as mostly cashiering and stuff, but the lifeguarding, not so much lifeguarding. We've only had really one person that's really expressed an interest in volunteering for an actual lifeguard.
How long does it take to be certified as a lifeguard?
It only takes a few days depending on the scheduling with the trainer.
Is it done in-house or online, or how's it done?
Through a local person, we use Destiny Mitchell is one of the ones that we use. She does some of our most of our training.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Question, Mayor.
Commissioner Clark?
Ms. Gardner, do you know, and this may have to go to Manager Fuentes, do you know what the liability is to the city for a volunteer lifeguard if something happens?
I do not. He might be able to answer that better for you.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioner Clark, there is certain liability exposure. We had a previous case where I believe a volunteer was involved, and that significantly exposed the city to liability. Just like any other volunteer program, we will have to look at policies, procedures, and not necessarily just having people show up, because as Tammy pointed out, 2 is what we would require. In the event of, for some reason, for one lifeguard not being able to completely perform a life safety, rescue, then the other will be there. So, there is certain liability exposure.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gardner.
Any other questions? Ms. Gardner, I've just got 2 quick ones. On the certification to be a certified lifeguard, is there a cost involved in that? And if so, who bears that cost?
The city. We pay for the cost whenever we hire. We give a certain amount of days, a time frame, and we pay to have the new hire trained
Okay.
and go through the certification.
And my second question is, I saw a document that came into City Hall. I believe that was created by Destiny Mitchell, and it had a list of a lot of people who either had been lifeguards, had applied for lifeguards and been denied for whatever particular reason. Has that list been exhausted? It's a 2-part question, I guess. And the other thing, have we reached out to the American Red Cross here, where they might have training programs where they obviously have access to people who are qualified, that could they get the word out for us that there is a job or job opportunities down in Truth or Consequences? Have we done that? I mean, have we turned over every rock? That's what I'm trying to find out.
As far as that list goes, I haven't dealt much with that list. I've talked a little bit here and there, but due to confidentiality with some of the information that's on that list, that's not something, due to confidentiality more than anything, that list is kind of hard to, it's on the fence as far as that list.
And if I may add, Mayor, Commissioners, and I do want to commend Tammy and also the Friends of the Pool, who we met with several months ago, when we kind of anticipated this to be an issue if we weren't able to get non-students to be lifeguards, as well as our HR department. All of that information that has been passed on to the city about potential candidates have been passed on to HR. But also, I think it's important to know that the efforts here to recruit lifeguards has not just been through our typical advertising. We even reached out to a staffing agency to task them to find us some lifeguards. And now, as the Commissioner Heschler asked the question about what is the starting salary? Now the starting salary is $11. So there's been a lot of effort from staff, from Tammy, from our HR office, even from the volunteers to try to recruit and word of mouth. I think even the list that was shared by Destiny, I'm sure there's communications and friends and they know people that know people, but I can tell you that not a lot of applications are going to the HR office. And if they do make it to the HR's office, and for screening reasons, obviously we can disclose, but there are some candidates that make it all the way through, and some candidates that are contacted that don't show up. So there's no short of effort from the standpoint of Tammy and staff.
Excellent, thank you for that. Can we just take 1 second, Ms. Renee? I think it's a little warm in here. Could we possibly adjust the thermostat for the comfort of everyone, including the commission? It's the button down. Look, I know. While we're waiting, are there any other questions from the... Well, we thank you for your due diligence and your effort to try to get that pool staffed and keep it open. And let's hope that possibly with the starting wage that's a little bit different than it used to be, that might tickle some people to move. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is comments from the public. If you want to address the commission, please come forward, state your name, where you live, and also if you want any information to be part of the record of this meeting, as Mr. Oshba, I think, did, just put it in the black box next to the microphone. Sir, the floor is yours.
I would like this put in the minutes, please, Mrs. Canton. My name is Randall K. Ashbald, 1023 Poplar Street, Truth and Consequences, New Mexico, August 8th, 2018, City Commission meeting. Well, Mrs. Clark, it's good to know the commissioners do not get special treatment. You have had a water leak in the front of your business downtown that's been running for weeks. Have you driven behind your business? Your alley is like a washboard. There are leaks running all over town. Marie Street, it's been running, my God. One was going one way, now there's another one going the other way. This is not the norm and has not been for decades. As a retired city employee remarked, that it's like it was, that is, you know what. This is not the water department's fault. What few personnel that are left cannot fix all the leaks in a timely fashion. This is the absolute fault of management. Over the years, you train people to replace retiring and people who leave. You give support to your employees so they can deal with their very difficult job. Absolutely no planning for personnel has been done. That is Mr. Fuentes' job. Also, what is supposed to be, where is the water and wastewater supervisor? What is he doing? I never see him checking anything out. The water and the sewer departments are in total shambles. Believe me, the rest of the departments are in the same shape. You just can't see the water running. Just an update for the commission on the lawsuit of Ashbach Construction filed against the city on the impact fees. It moves forward. The main counts on the suit are intact and the court ruled in the favor of Ashbach Construction. It is only going to get worse for the city from this point. Mr. Fuentes is also responsible for this city mess. In the court filings, it states here, the motion for summary judgment to dismiss counts 1, 3, and 4, the main parts of the lawsuit, or stay in their entirety, and the summary judgment is denied in bold letters. Mr. Fuentes, if you had any integrity at all, you'd resign today. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henry?
Good morning, Commissioners. John Henry. I have a place at 517 Austin. Can I just say, as somebody who doesn't live here on a full-time basis, that there are so many great things about this town. I have been associated with, as Mayor Green and I worked together back when I brought the Veterans Wall down here and then ended up purchasing it to the water rights of the golf course. I've been around, and I'm sensing, and perhaps this is because I hang out at the brew pub even though I don't drink, I'm sensing a change in this town and a move forward, and we want to be part of that moving forward. One of the things that I'm having difficulty is finding the minutes for the lodger's tax on board, because we asked for a lodger's tax grant for an event we're calling Hops in Hollywood. We want to do over the Veterans Day weekend. It would be the third iteration of the film festival we brought down here. My partner's going to talk about the advantage of film festivals to town. They don't only bring tourists, they bring economic activity on a long-term basis. She can address that, but I can't figure out how the Lodgers Tax Board works or where it is. One of the things I heard was that the Lodgers Tax Board is not interested in promoting new events, which is great, because we're not a new event. We are a new applicant, but we're not a new event. So I think we would fit into this. Another thing with the Lodgers Tax Board I can't figure out is, are you charging the maximum lodgers tax that you can charge? Because as far as I can see, you're getting 4% lodgers tax and 2% for the convention center. I think there's another point in there that you can get. You may have to petition the state to do it. Nobody has ever chosen a tourism destination based on 1% lodgers tax. Everby is significantly higher. Las Cruces is significantly higher. Albuquerque, Santa Fe, a lot of the smaller areas are significantly higher. And I really look to make sure you're getting that maximum from the lodgers tax so you can do that economic development activity that can come in. I think the lodgers community would support that, since this money has to be dedicated to filling these rooms. So I'm here to ask, to plead, if there's some way you can help us with Hops in Hollywood over the Veterans Day weekend. I promise you a great event. It's a 3-day event. We will fill the town. We will bring in the movie stars like we did before, and we will push TRC out as a filming destination around the state and around the country, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else like to address this now?
Hi, my name is Nani Rivera, and I have been visiting Truth or Consequences for over 5 years and living here part-time as well. And I've been working with John Henry on the film festival, but I also work with many other film festivals around the state. And I've been working on marketing the film industry in general in the state of New Mexico. And what we have found is there are times when there's a lot of business in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, and we see a lot of potential in other areas around the state of New Mexico. There's a lot of money in the film industry, and they spend money on hotels, they spend money on restaurants, they go to your shops and buy jewelry, buy art, and go out and have fun. And one thing that film festivals do is they bring the filmmakers to the community. So when we throw a film festival in Santa Fe, we'll get over 100 filmmakers, and a few of them always end up coming back and filming in Santa Fe because they love it. And that's what I'd like to see happen here in Truth or Consequences. I think that this is a great area for filmmakers to come and make their movies, and this is a way to bring them and show them what you guys have here. And another thing that I am doing is in February I do the New Mexico Film and Television Hall of Fame Awards, which was really successful for our inaugural year, and it's also combined with other film festivals, the Santa Fe Film Festival, especially because it's in Santa Fe. But we have the Las Cruces Film Festival, Borderlands, Tau Shorts, and a few others around the state, because what we like to do is show, while we have those 10,000 people there in Santa Fe, in February, we want to tell them about all the other great places. So we have a showcase for TRC Film Fiesta along with the others that I was talking about. So you get free marketing and promotion that I'd be happy to match in that program and encourage them to come and check you out. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, Mr. Fenn?
Good morning, Commissioner. Ron Fenn. I do resent the fact that you move public comment after presentations to pander to somebody else while making citizens for whom you work sit there and have to listen to something that they may not want to have to listen to. You owe your allegiance to the people, and the people is item C, and C should come before any other item on any agenda. All right, enough of that. Looking at your budget, 34.86% of the city's revenues come from the theft of utility money. The enterprise utilities money is for the repair, upgrade, and replacement of our essential services. It is not to cover shortfalls that Mr. Fuentes is unable to manage when the salaries in this city are 62% of the budget, and only 28% is allocated for operating expense. There is something extremely wrong with the picture. In 7 years, Mr. Fuentes has not improved the financial status of this community one iota. It's time for a change. It's time for you to leave. It's time for you to leave, because you are the major backer of Mr. Fuentes. And without your constant petting, he might not last. This is ridiculous. This city is going nowhere, and it's going nowhere fast.
Anyone else like to address the commission?
Good morning. My name is Jenny Neely, and I'm the president and parent representative for the TRC Tiger Shark swim team. I would like to say a few words on behalf of the swim team swimmers, parents, volunteers, and supporters. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Tammy Gardner, our pool manager. She's done a great job this year. Also, the pool staff has been a pleasure to work with, very polite, very professional. I would also like to ask right now for all of our certified lifeguards and junior lifeguards to please stand up. Now, as you see, most of these members are swim team members. We do take pride in our pool, our community. We want our kids to be safe. So last year, we were able to get a lot of our swim team members certified, and our young ones that were too young, we got them junior lifeguard certifications. Yeah, we're happy to be here, and we're very thankful for our pool. Swimming appears to be a simple sport. All it requires is a body of water. If it was this simple, we would never get our kids out of the pool. Although we are blessed to have an adequate facility in our community, our kids can't just jump right in anytime they want. This year, our anxious swimmers understandingly waited all winter for our newly resurfaced J.A. Hodges Municipal Pool to open this summer. Once it opened, the kids couldn't wait to begin practices. We still needed to confirm a practice schedule with the pool manager, arrange for certified lifeguards during practices, schedule coaches, check chlorine levels, and say a daily prayer for the afternoon lightning to leave us alone. If one of these elements is not in place, our Tiger Sharks are unable to practice. This year's swim season was shortened due to the late opening date, and our practice schedule was decreased from 5 days a week to 4. Even though our swimmers had less practice time this summer, they successfully made up for it with their determination. 10 out of our 28 swimmers qualified in individual events for the Sundance Championships. We're only the fastest swimmers in each district earn a spot. These swimmers did an incredible job at representing our small but mighty town. Our unique organization of passionate kids and committed parents devote the majority of their summer to swimming. Our team also heavily relies on graciousness of local donations and a group of devoted volunteers. The large amount of recurring community support provides our swimmers an amazing opportunity to succeed and represent Truth or Consequences in a positive aspect each summer. We have an amazing community willing to support our kids, and we are thankful for everyone believing in our swimmers and assisting them along their journey. We would like to ask the City of TRC to please keep in mind our youth population and youth organizations when making decisions regarding the future of the J.A. Hodges Municipal Pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kathy Eisen. I'm a level 4 water wastewater operator. I've worked for the city since the end of January and resigned a couple weeks ago, and just wanted to introduce myself because I really didn't get a chance to meet all of you or talk with you. And just wanted to let you know that, I really love TRC. I worked out on the plains for a couple of years. I really fell in love with the area. Would have really liked to stay. Found a lot of managerial issues. There was a complete lack of leadership and structure in the water wastewater department, and the feeling I've got from all the city employees that it's a citywide issue. And I'd just like to encourage the commission and the Public Utilities Advisory Board, because I think they were formed to oversee the operation and the function of the utilities. And I feel that they haven't been well informed and that they haven't had the opportunity to support the employees and to better the function of the city. There's a lot of failures. I would have loved to have stayed. If things change, I would consider coming back. I've never got in front of a commission, but I have a lot of strong feelings, and I was very disappointed. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dennis Dunham, and I've been coming through Truth and Consequences for the past, 40 years or something like that, and just recently moved here last year from Carrizozo. And Carrizozo is a town of 900 people. We had a swimming pool, and over the last couple of years, the town itself, the volunteers, and I know that there's a huge volunteer bunch here that really want to work on the pool. In Carrizozo, we managed to get grants to totally turn the heating in with solar heating. We raised enough money so that all of the children in the public schools swim free all summer long. And here we've got this town who's dependent on the senior snowbirds that come here, tourists, and we have this amazing, amazing pool. I mean, I have never seen a pool in New Mexico that is classy as this is. And the volunteers here are willing to pay somebody to write grants, since the city isn't, and to get, whatever we need here. But in order to do that, people who are going to give money to Truth and Consequences swimming pool need to know that the city commission is behind it. And from everything I've heard, and it's all rumor, which is rife in every little town, but that the city commission is constantly trying to undermine the pool and would rather fill it in and go do something else. That's not going to work. We need, if we're going to take this wonderful thing that is available for kids, for the Veterans Administration, if they are interested, the schools, if they want to bring kids to the pool, there's so many people in this town that could use that pool, and we could use that as leverage to get money from people who have it. But we can't do it unless we get something really positive from the commission that says you want it and you're willing to do your part, particularly in terms of maintenance. And that's all I have to say, and I hope you guys can get behind us. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, Sarah. Ms. Frothingham.
Hi, I'm Sarah Frothingham. I want you guys to come to the pool and use it. It's phenomenal what was done last fall to this pool. It is an outstanding pool. Steve, I happen to know you would heal yourself if you went swimming. And I'm sure Tammy...
Mentally or physically?
I'm sure Tammy would even close the pool to us and let you guys come on in. I mean, you're missing something. The water quality has never been this good. The guards are phenomenal. The pool is clean. The dressing rooms, everything is clean. It is gorgeous. Now, I really don't want to go negative, but I'm really concerned that when Don told me that the heater in the pump house was going to be repaired and up and running last spring, and it didn't happen. And I was disappointed when I saw this expensive equipment like the bubble, like the cover that goes over the pool water, was left out while the stuccoing was being done. So that makes for fine little holes. Now, I've been told that that cover can go back up and can be repaired, but without a heater, we're kind of lost. But what we saw with the children in the afternoon, the utter happiness is phenomenal. And the seniors' happiness. In the morning, there are about 30, anywhere from 20 to 30 people that are paying between 9 and 10 in the morning to do exercises. And then Millie has a class in the afternoon, and people come to that, and the kids are swimming around us. So it's truly a pool of the community. So thank you, and please maintain it. Please maintain that expensive equipment. The cover was how many hundreds of thousands of dollars, or how many thousands of dollars? And the plastic cover that goes over the pool was wearing out, but it had 2 more years left in it, and now it's destroyed. Friends of the Pool are willing to work with the city on smaller projects, but we do need a commitment that this is going to be done. And my suggestion is get in that pool, and you'll never want to leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning, folks. I'm Tom Smith, 609 Kruger on TRC. In regard to the pool, I will just make a comment. A few years ago when I moved here, I've had a place here for about 10, 12 years, and I was with a group one day, probably 5 years ago when I moved here full-time, and I said, guys, all the small towns across the United States are struggling. The big cities are increasing and that type of thing. And, all agreed. And I said, guys, you really have to get behind. We need 3 things here to keep the city, the lifestyle of the people. And we need the swimming pool, we need the bowling alley, and the movie theater. Now, two of those are private, and I know they're struggling and they're trying to do a job. But, the lifestyle of the community is, and again, of course, I'm with the swim team. I've got a young man that swims on the swim team, and I'm really behind that. Always been a swimmer, and that type of thing. It has a lot of capabilities, and what it does for the people. But being part of the swim team, I've got to travel to Hatch, Los Lunas, Belen, Socorro, Deming, and I just don't understand why we have trouble in Tier C with a swimming pool. Every one of those cities has a better swimming pool, better staffed, the size of the pools and that type of thing, and I just, I got to see what is around us, and I guess I don't know what the problem is, why we're having such a problem with this pool, and but what it does for the community and everything like that, I just really would agree with everybody that's made statements here today. We really need to do whatever we can. We need you all to be behind that program, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else? Going once. Mr. Townsend?
Good morning, City Commissioners, Mr. Manager, and our City Clerk. I've got a couple of things I want to talk about.
Just state your name, sir.
Sorry, my name's Hans Townsend, the Desert View Inn and Chamber of Commerce. I'm very surprised that I put an application to be on the agenda today. My application obviously didn't go through. It's not on the agenda, and I feel it was very important. You've already had John come up and talk about the movies, about the Hollywood and Hops Festival that was wanted to be put on. The most important events that we have are the events that we've been doing for years, because people already know about them, because people already come to town because of them. And to keep dropping them and trying to install new events is not the right way to go. New events are nice if you can afford to do them, but they entail convincing the public that are not here in town that it's going to be worthwhile. And that hasn't happened in a lot of cases. And I would mention the fact that the Hot Springs Festival has not been successful as far as out-of-towners is concerned. That was my weakest week at the hotel of May. Every week I had people calling. In fact, Memorial Day weekend on the Monday, I had 30 people calling for rooms after I was full. And that shows me when people are in town. The Hot Springs Festival, I had none calling after I was full. In fact, I didn't fill till 3 in the morning. And also the advertising wasn't put out till the weekend of the event, and that was the same last year. And some of the hot springs didn't even know what was going on. These things are throwing money at the wall. And I'm sorry, but I'm not trying to be bigoted in any way. I just feel that those are the things we should be looking at. When people come into town, that's when they spend money. If they don't come into town, they don't. And so ask other hotels, get reflection on that would be very important. I see my time is ticking down. I'm going to leave this Hops and Hollywood in here for you to look at, because I think I was supposed to be on the agenda to talk about this. The Lodgers Tax Commission squashed a rule that nonprofits could increase their amount of money, and the request was for this Hops and Hollywood, which, as you can look at past, it was very successful. The other thing is that I think the city should be serious looking at the side effects of the mine. The advantages are unimaginable to us. Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the commission? Sally?
My name is Terry Vandeventer. I live at 1005 Cooper Street. The reason I'm here today is also for recreation. The rumors going around, and we don't know if there's anything to it or not, that our golf course manager is going to be leaving the 1st of September. What I would like to ask is, we had a meeting with Juan and Rolf several months ago, our men's club did. And we made the suggestion that if it's going to take a new manager or something else at the pool, start your search at least a few months ahead of time, not just a few weeks. Now, if this rumor is true, I would like to urge you to, when you go to get the next manager, please hire someone that is acquainted with golf courses, knows golf courses, knows what they need and how to do what they need. Because the one we've had for the last 4 years had no knowledge, he still doesn't have any knowledge, and he has not been taking care of the golf course. That course has been set back 15 years since he took over 4 years ago. And you can go up there and take a look. Just like the last 2 days, they had no water. Well, you know, we live in the middle of the desert, and you have to have water if you're going to make anything work. And for 2 days, they had no water. Look at the greens and look at the rest of the golf course, and you can see where there was no water involved there. I guess that's about all I have, but I would like to find out if the rumor is true that he is going to be leaving the 1st of September. Nobody seems to know anything. It's just talk among people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderbilt. Yes. I know you've been trying to get down there from the back row.
Denise Addy, Caballo, New Mexico. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, citizens of TRC. Thank you for letting me have a few minutes this morning to ask for your blessing, to do something special for TRC and for all of the residents of Sierra County. And I will be going to the rest of the commissions in Sierra County, Williamsburg, and Elephant Butte to ask for their blessings and to join me in this little endeavor too. I'm hoping that you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, might be able to help me out with my little, or maybe not so little, project. I want to do a 9/11 memorial at Hamilton Military Museum. I would hope that we would all remember how we felt that dreadful day almost 17 years ago. The patriotism we had, the love and caring that we showed to each other, the compassion after 9/11 happened. It is time to make this community the best place in the world to live, full of love and kindness again, instead of ugliness and trite. I have spoken to Diane Hamilton and Maggie Allen to get their blessings already, and they are both on board and will be there for the festivities. Just a little background, and not that we need it, but it does help bring it back to the front of our brains. 19 men hijacked 4 fuel-loaded U.S. commercial airplanes bound for the West Coast. A total of 2,977 people were killed in New York, Washington, D.C., and outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania. At the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan, 2,753 people were killed when hijacked American Airlines Flight 11 and United Flight 175 were intentionally crashed into the North and South Towers, or as a result of the crashes. Of those who perished during the initial attacks and collapses of the towers, 343 were New York City firefighters, 23 were New York City police officers, and 37 were Port Authority. The victims ranged in age from 2 to 85 years. That's a huge range. That's our population here. We range from very young to very old. So I am hoping that the JROTC will be on hand for the presentation of colors and the band to play the national anthem, which I will know later today because I'm meeting with the high school principal and the band. I'm working on several other dignitaries to speak to. At the end of the memorial, I want to be able to give every participant a balloon that we will release together to remember those lives that were lost. So at the end of the memorial, I'm hoping that something this community will be proud of. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Saved by the bell.
Good morning. My name is Collie Sue Lawson, and I live at 701 Poplar here in TRC. First of all, I wanted to thank Tammy Gardner for the wonderful presentation. I have to agree with Jenny Neely that the pool and the lifeguards that we have there, along with her, have been just phenomenal. I mean, they're very kind, very helpful, and very respectful. So I do appreciate that. My next question is when y'all spoke of paying the lifeguards $11 an hour, does that mean that they will have benefits or non-benefits? So I would like, some clarification on that. I didn't know if maybe y'all were still staying at the other pay level and paying some of them, benefits depending on how they are classified or whatever. I would also, the next thing I'd like to know is if the pools cover if we are not able to have the lifeguards have it on for the winter, for the snowbirds, people that, do really benefit from it, if they're going to go ahead and winterize the pool, and how that, what that entails, how they do that. If that's the pool cover is put on or it's not, and then maintain the pool, throughout the winter months, and how it is actually winterized. I don't know if anybody, has that answer, but I would like for y'all to investigate and possibly get back to Friends of the Pool. So again, thank you for our lovely pool and for working with us. And if we've had, any questions, y'all have been most kind to meet with us and answer anything that we do have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lawson. Anyone else? Thank you for your comments and your interest in your community and all of our communities. The next item is response to public comments. We heard a lot of questions were asked. Do we have some of the answers that we can give out now? Concerns? Anybody? Manager Fuentes.
Yes, Mayor. Guess I'll start with the last question that Ms. Lawson asked, the question of the pay, does it include benefits? And the answer is yes. If they are full-time employees, they do. That is the starting rate for employees, whether they be in the pool, whether they be in the Parks and Recreation, or any other department. So to answer your question, it does. In regards to the pool cover, I don't know the answer to that question because obviously our primary focus right now is to recruit lifeguards so that we can maintain the schedule. So obviously, you heard the presentation, and we continue to welcome applications as they come in. Ultimately, will be a policy decision, but, if we can get the lifeguards, great. But I can't answer that question at this time. But, we definitely want to focus on trying to just recruit the lifeguards to be able to help us stay open. In regards to the question from Mr. Van der Vender regarding the Terry, our golf course manager, yes, he did indicate to me that he wanted to transition out. However, he also expressed to me, Mayor Commissioners, that he's also willing to extend that if necessary, and if not, even till the end of his contract. So there's still no uncertainty on that. So he's obviously, we're still working out there. He's doing a good job, in my opinion. We have a good working relationship, the staff with him. So, but again, to your question, he is willing to extend that if necessary all the way up to the end of his contract, but I will get clarification for the commissioners on that. I do want to bring up, Mayor, Commissioners, in regards to Mr. Fenn's question about the budget, and I think since we have a good segment here of the public present, what I wanted to show the public is this graph here that, when Mr. Fenn comes before the commission and provides misinformation about the budget, what we've been trying to accomplish throughout the last 10 years. What I wanted to highlight, Mayor, and you see this every time we go through the budget process, this graph here on the top is your expenses. And it is correct, in any municipality in the state of New Mexico, or actually throughout the country, or even in the state itself, personnel makes up the largest share of the expenses in any operation. As you can, and so all of our operating, and this is only in the general fund, is up here, and down here is the history that I've been tracking over the years since 2009 of the trend between your expenses and your revenues, which is down here in this column. So obviously, as you all can see, there's a gap between the expenses and the revenue. The biggest share of revenue comes from our gross receipts tax. That's why you see a big effort, a big emphasis on these activities, whether it's a film festival, whether it's the fiestas in town, whether it's trying to promote initiatives that brings downtown, supporting the brewery to come and set up shop in the downtown area that has literally transformed the downtown now in the evenings, the plaza. A lot of these efforts and activities is aimed towards increasing our GRT, which makes up the bulk of our revenues in the general fund, but there's still a gap. And as you can see here, there was an effort to kind of reduce the gap, but of course, and it went down we were seeing an increase in GRT, things happen at the state. We are at the mercy of the state in regards to GRT, and in regards to a Small Cities Assistance Fund. So if the state takes a hit in the revenues, we also take a hit, and this is all the municipalities. So again, as you can see, now the gap started increasing again. The level of service that we're maintaining at this time, please realize that there's support from the commission, but there is, to some extent, some pressure because obviously our revenues are not growing as fast as our expenditures. At the very end, you see that our revenues for the period of 2009 to projected 2019 have grown 18%, but our expenditures have grown only 14%. But there's still a huge gap here. So there is going to be an ongoing balance between what we can offer and we provide new services. Unfortunately, new programs that cost money, those are ultimately a decision of the commission. So I just wanted to share that information because, again, it's just the misinformation that presented. And please realize that when efforts of promoting GRT is brought forth, it all in part is because we have to provide services and we have to generate GRT for that effort. I want to thank you for those that have complimented our staff. Again, I think Tammy has done an excellent job, as well as some of the lifeguards out there, and I think the pool has never looked better. And I think, yes, have there been some issues that we still need to look at? Yes, and we're continuing to work towards that. But I think that, I have the full confidence in Tammy that the job that the job she has done, as well as the communication we have had with some of the volunteers and the Friends of the Pool, and that will continue. So the support is there to continue the pool open, but we're struggling to find lifeguards. And let me tell you that we're not the only community. Tammy has spoken to other communities, and even in speaking with the staffing agency, they said the same thing. It is hard to find staff. So we're not alone. But if anybody knows anybody, please send them to the HR for an application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just to expand on Manager Fuentes, when you mentioned small city assistance, just to give you an idea how we took a hit, in 2016, our check from Santa Fe was $638,000. In 2017, it was $131,000. In 2018, it was $131,000. Where does a small community make up $500,000 in their operating budget? It is really tough. And all of the people, I want to echo Manager Fuentes' kind remarks and justified remarks about our staff and the users of our pool. I can say this, that during the budget hearings, and we had a few of them, there was never one word, never one question about the money that was put into the pool budget. That was really never the issue. The issue now is staffing it to keep it open. So I cannot speak for my fellow commissioners, but I, for one, am behind the pool 1,000%. And this initiative, if we can get the people to keep it open, I will always vote for it. And that is a commitment I'm going to make to this community. Mr. Henry, real quick, two things, and maybe Clerk Canton can help me on this. First of all, the lodger's tax is 5%. We are maxed out like any other community that's got 5%, and we have a 1% convention fee. We have not gotten, the commission has not gotten the minutes from the last lodger's tax meeting, and I don't know what was their mindset when they're talking about not funding new events or whatever. So I would like to wait till the commission gets the minutes of that meeting. I believe it was last week, and possibly we'll have it in the next city commission meeting packet before any of the commissioners might want to talk about that. Anything else, Clerk Canton, to add on that?
I could, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and Mr. Townsend and Mr. Henry. In response to the largest tax board and the film festival, the board met last Thursday evening and reviewed the guidelines for which the commission will need to approve. It was discovered that the current largest tax funding recipients couldn't request an increase in the funding due to the way it was written in the guidelines and the way they are currently. Unfortunately, their meeting was last Thursday and we didn't get both the guidelines and the chamber's request for the increase for the film Festival on this agenda. But I will include it on the next agenda for consideration, and hopefully the draft minutes, the board still needs to approve the minutes, but we can get the draft minutes to the commission for that as well. So that's where we are on that issue, and that's why we couldn't proceed forward. The item was denied for the commission meeting, but we're going to bring the guidelines and bring it back at another time.
Very good. Thank you very much. And the last thing I want to do is we're talking about rumors. Mr. Vanderbilt was talking about rumors. We hear the word fake news. I had a meeting on Friday with a gentleman who I respect, a very smart guy, and we were talking about the subject matter at hand, and then, of course, subject matter is kind of trade off into city business. And a gentleman looked at me and said, you know, the community is really upset that the commission voted $8,000 for you to go out to California. And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, that's out there. It's a rumor. On Sunday, a person who lives here part-time came by our house to visit with my wife and said the same thing. Why is the commission spending $8,000 for you to go to California when we have so many other pressing issues right here at home? And once again, I said, what are you talking about? And she explained it to me. So I just want to clear the air and get any rumor that I think I know why it was started, and I'll just leave it at that, out there. Virgin Galactic, as you probably have been following in the paper, is moving their staff and some of their support crew to somewhere in southern New Mexico. We know they're going to be operating out of Spaceport America. So those folks are going to live in Donna Ana County and or Sierra County. And I'm working with a person in Las Cruces who is the second in command for relocation. And this was at the wishes of the commission. And we delivered 40 relocation packages down to Las Cruces. That person's boss is out in Mojave. That person is coming here next month, and we just had an email to that effect actually 3 days ago. And so I asked my fellow commissioners if they would be comfortable with myself and Manager Fuentes going out to Mojave, and rather than asking them to come to us, show how important it is and how much we want them to take a look at our community, we're going to go to the mountain. And so I asked my fellow commissioners, I said the airfares at that time was $335 round trip, a car rental, a room for the night, maybe $500, you know, so we're talking $1,000. And so where the number $8,000 came from, I don't know. But I also looked into our budget that was approved and the last year's budget. And the last year's budget, under personnel expenses for the governing body, which is the commission, there is $2,000 put aside for travel. Under the city manager's budget, there is $2,450 put aside for travel. That money is already in the budget. And basically, I was asking for about $1,000. As it turns out, the big person is coming to our community, and I don't know if he's going to want us to go out to Mojave and meet with the families or not. But during discussion, and I took a look and I asked Ms. Canton to print out the minutes from that particular meeting, which I have here somewhere. And, oh, here it is, thank you. And there is not one word of $8,000, but here's what I did find, and I believe this might have been Commissioner Clark's line, I'm not quite sure. If we do nothing, we will get nothing. If this community is going to wait for Ralph Edwards to come in and save it, that ain't going to happen. And we are in a fight for our lives, as far as I'm concerned, to build back our community, to get more GRT. We cannot compete with Las Cruces financially. We are not in their league, but we are a smart, we are aggressive, and we are going to go to that mountain. And that, I think, is one of the tasks that you, who have voted for these 5 commissioners to serve you, is to make a quality of life that is wonderful for all. Unfortunately, that requires some dollars. And to sit back, and I think my fellow commissioners and those in the audience and those who are listening over the radio know me well enough, and this is not an election year for me, that if the commission had turned me down, I would have gone on my own dime. That's how important I think it is for us to fight the battle and not just roll over and wait for henny penny, the sky is falling, and people are dropping gold in our laps. It's not going to happen. So I hope that clears up the $8,000 rumor. And Mr. Townsend, I must say you're a personal friend of mine. I was a little disappointed in what you did say here. We have an expression back east, and it goes, it's not enough that I succeed, but my friends must fail. And I understand your position about the Hot Springs Festival, but to denigrate someone else's effort in public, I don't think is a value exercise. Thank you. That's all I have to say. The next item is, I beg your pardon, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I keep on looking over here, I gotta look over here.
I just have one request, and that's for Manager Fuentes to give us an update on the pool cover during the next meeting, so that folks can make their plans for the winter.
Anything else?
Just 2 comments, yeah. One thing is that conversations over the year, Mr. Henry, is that having an event, if we could, every week in this community would be amazing. It's not happening, but that you're willing to make an effort to put another event on our table, I think is pretty commendable. And in comparison, one event that was a first-time event was done this Memorial Weekend. It was an off-road vehicle race, and it was an extraordinary success. And it was pulled off by some people I could see in this audience, one in the back. And so first-time events can be extremely successful, and that particular event did fill up an awful lot of the hotels and rooms in town and brought, I believe, the net result to our community was $40,000, which is quite remarkable for a first-time event. The other comment I would like to make is that one of my big complaints as the first chair commissioner here, which was 4.5 years ago, was the extraordinary health expense that this city is burdened with in our budgets. And I still have that problem. And I talk to Manager Fuentes about it and Melissa Torres every single year to find out why sometimes our health insurance all by its own self is 40% of the salary cost. And that is something we have no control over in this city. We take care of our people, we take care of their families if they so choose. And that is one of the biggest parts of that variance when you see in the operating cost versus the income coming into the general fund. And if there was something we could do about it, I guarantee Manager Fuentes and I would do it, and so would Ms. Torres. So I just wanted to make that observation too, because that hadn't come up. But our people are very well taken care of in the benefit department, and that is one of the expenses that we burden, and we do it with grace and gratefully. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Let me look left and right. Commissioner Baca.
Kathy, with the Water Department, I'm very disappointed to hear that you resigned. I know you are very knowledgeable at your job. Maybe one day we can convince you to come back, I guess. Another thing, I obtained a little information. I thought we had discussed, Mr. Fuentes, that anytime there's any kind of emergencies, that the supervisor, like in the Water Department, was still supposed to be there to help these guys out. From my knowledge and my understanding, he never shows up. Latest thing that he's told just to deal with. Another thing is, I obtained a little information that Mr. Arnie is taking the city vehicle home to Sunland Park once, twice a week, 3 times. And his fuel receipts are showing that he's putting a lot of miles I can understand if he's taking a part, big part, to somewhere else to be dropped off, but I would assume with his salary, little motor, I don't think he needs to take a city truck. Taking the city vehicle home and not answering, I would understand why isn't he answering his phone to show up on these things.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Baca, Manager Fuentes.
Yes. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and Commissioner Baca, I wanted to kind of interrupt here because I think it is highly inappropriate for you to bring up personnel matters in a public forum such as this. This is the first time I hear from you in regards to those concerns. I think that's better handled internally because it is a personnel matter. I'm not sure where you're getting your information from. So I would recommend that maybe we should have a sit down and you can share some of that information, but to have a discussion, I cannot respond to any of your questions because again, it is a personnel matter and that's handled internally, privately. So I would respectfully request maybe for us to have a sit down.
Anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. All right, then moving on, I will stand for, a motion for a consent. First of all, on the consent calendar, does any commissioner want to pull any of the 6 items off separately and vote on that?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, Commissioner Clark. Yeah, I beg your pardon, excuse me.
Should not move item I2 before the consent
No,
calendar?
it's after the consent calendar. Yeah, consent calendar.
So the commission
Sorry.
meeting minutes that I've missed, I'd like to pull off
Okay.
and have those done by the 3 of you separately.
So that would be
That'd be
number 1.
number 1.
Okay, so I will stand for a motion then for approval of the consent calendar, which consists of Lodgers Tax Advisory Board minutes, May 10th and 14th, 2018, accounts payable, July 2018, fourth quarter report for Lodgers Tax Grant recipients, 5 fourth quarter reports for subrecipient grants, and number 6, amendment, number 1 to the severance tax bond project grant for the Veterans Wall. Someone brave enough to say so moved? I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler and a second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Thank you, it carries unanimously. The next item is I'm looking for approval of the consent calendar for F1, the City Commission regular minutes of July 11th, 2018.
So moved.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler and a second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. It carries with Commissioner Clark abstaining. The next item now, we are going to jump down, is Chief Tooley in the premises, in the building. Yes, he is. To I-2, which is an MOU between Sierra County Regional Dispatch Center and the City of Truth and Consequences. And first, I'm going to have Manager Fuentes kind of give the commission a heads up on where we are right now.
Start the discussion. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. So what you have before you, so the chief emailed a proposed MOU between the city volunteer fire department and the SCRTA. We have our SCRTA executive director present. In reviewing the lease, there were 2 provisions in that lease that I had questions on, and about the liability and also the ability to oversee and determination of the lease. In my opinion, that property is city property, so I felt, well, maybe it would be appropriate for the city to be the actual entity to be in place of that. Subsequent to that, the fire chief did send out an email saying that he did not agree, as well as the membership, to that change. So I did forward all of that information, as well as the email, the proposed changes, to our legal counsel, John Appel, and he did revise it further, and I have provided a copy to you all with his changes. And based on some of the comments I've received and, to try to kind of get this thing moving along, those changes are presented before you in the revised versions from Mr. Attell, which also names the city as well in the paragraph under duration and under the liability insurance. And I guess the question remains, Mayor, and maybe this will be the opportunity for Chief Tully to answer the question. Under section of the liability and insurance, it specifically states there that both SCRTA, the city, and the TRC Volunteer Firemen shall at all times during the term of this MOU have and keep enforced liability insurance in the amount deemed appropriate by the parties. So the question, Mayor, and just for clarification, is does the volunteer fire department have a separate liability insurance policy to cover the property and all the fire department stations?
No, what we pay for is volunteer fire insurance service. So anytime we're at the fire station or on a training or at a call or anything, we provide the insurance to protect our firefighters, of course. And we understand that this is a city building. Our deal that we came up with the MOU was between SCRTA, the city, and the fire department. So where this got off the rails was basically we were kind of not necessarily pushed out. We understand it's a city building, and we even stated that in the MOU, but I think our concern was that we're the ones that have to make sure that what SCRTA does doesn't interfere with what we do from the fire side. So there was some issues that we needed to work through to make sure that that doesn't happen, that we don't lose our funding for a main station and so forth. So that's where it got a little sideways. And, the MOU was presented to all the parties so that they could get their 2 cents into the MOU. So where it went from there, it just went a little bit sideways, and we were taken off the MOU. The last version was going to be without the fire department on the MOU. So my guys brought it up at our last business meeting that if we're not part of the MOU, then we don't want SCRTA there. We need to make sure that we protect everything. We're going to be the ones that are in that building, making sure that everything runs properly as far as their operations separated from our operations, and make sure that we can both work together.
Thank you, Chief. And I think, Mayor, that's why I think the revised proposal by John Appel, I think, satisfies all the parties' concerns and maybe clarifications. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I stand for any questions.
Any questions from members from the commission?
Yeah.
Now, you first, then we'll go to Paul.
Okay. Chief Tully, you've read through this latest version.
Yeah, we pretty much authored about 80% of this to make sure that everything's where it needs to be.
How are you feeling about this latest version?
Well, I'm okay. I think, I don't make the final decision in that department. We're our own organization there, and I still got, no matter what happens, I still got to take it back for our business meeting there at the fire department. So allow our guys to redigest this. It took me a while to lay a lot of track to get them to commit that we could move SCRTA in that direction. And after the last edit, we're pretty much up in arms.
And so I'm because I've been gone for a while, I apologize for missing some of this, but it does make sense to me that it is the city building, so we need to have our name on these MOUs. But I also appreciate the fact that the fire department would take a personal responsibility to make certain that dispatch is operating the way it needs to operate in that building for not only the fire department, but on behalf of the city. I think that says an awful lot about our fire department.
Yeah, there's some things we have to meet for our requirements for the State Fire Marshal's
Right.
office as well. So we just need to make sure that those are in place.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that it's done for you too. That's why I'm asking if you're comfortable with this version. And the other question would be to Attorney Rubin. You've been through this a couple of times too, I'm certain. And are you confident that both the fire department and the city is covered with this MOU? And how do we feel about the 10-year term of this?
I think the agreement looks pretty good. And again, I haven't defer to John Appel. He's the one that prepared this, but I went through it, and I think, it addresses some of the concerns that the chief has indicated. I think it also talks about, our being a party to this, which is something I know that you just articulated is very important to us. I think, the 10-year term is something that I think has been discussed before. Maybe Chief, you can help me out with this, but didn't we agree we need to have a longer term, I guess, because some of the commitments are...
Well, the biggest commitment we always have is you can't just pick up SCRTA and move them to another building. You got 911 trunk lines that come in. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructure that has to go into the building, and you just can't pick that up and move it overnight. So I think that long term was an agreement between both parties as to what the minimum would be.
Yeah.
I think we have it in there at 10 years.
A minimum of 10 years on the duration
Correct.
paragraph, yeah.
And Attorney Rubin, and the next line is that after the expiration of 10 years, the parties may renew the lease in 10-year increments.
Right, yes. That's, of course, yeah, it's got to be by mutual consent, but yes.
So basically, Chief, that's protecting the infrastructure investment in moving SCRTA to that building, because my understanding is that the SCRTA puts a lot of that expense. Is that not correct?
Well, SCRTA will pay a lot of the majority of that. So the issue is there's just a lot of infrastructure that needs to be moved. The trunk lines are huge, because all 911 in Sierra County has to go, not over here, it has to go over here now. So that takes a lot of engineering and everything to get that all taken care of. And then by the time they put the radios in and communication back to the hill and getting everything done, it's a major undertaking just to get them in business. Not much less, just move them somewhere.
Thank you for answering my questions.
And Commissioner Clark also, the other thing I'll just point out, not that I really want to emphasize this, but it does call for a 6-month termination clause if it doesn't work out. So that's the other thing.
So we do have that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, just a comment from the Mayor. This new MOU does look a little bit better. I had the same concerns when it first came out. I guess I'm going to just say this, my disappointment came with the process. And it seems like we got up in arms on both sides because of the way things were handled, and they should have been handled that way. And I would encourage that our city manager and the fire chief in the future, if we have these differences, these issues, please sit down at the table together first, discuss these issues, try to come to an agreement, and bring it before the commission. I think we got upset on both sides and polarized some members of this community, and those things shouldn't happen. So I would just request your diligence in those areas in the future, and let's work as a team to try to get these things done. Thank you.
Okay, some good points. I always thought the city was the owner, the fire department was the manager of the building, and SCRTA is going to be the occupant of a part of the space of that building. So with this new revised MOU, which I heard Fire Chief Chuli will have to take back to his organization, I will stand for a motion for approval of the MOU between the Sierra County Regional Dispatch Center and the City of Shrewsbury Consequences. Someone like to make that motion? If not, I will make that motion that we approve the MOU and with the understanding that it must be approved by the other parties. Is there a second on that?
I'll second that.
I have a second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, it carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief. All right, now we are back to public hearings. The first public hearing is going to be for our infrastructure capital improvements plan, or just call it ICIP, for the fiscal year 2020-2024. And our presenter is going to be Tracy Burnett, our grants projects coordinator.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. So this morning's public hearing is going to address the ICIP. This portion is for discussion and input. No action at this time will be taken. That'll be later in the meeting. So included in your packets an upcoming list for the review and comments. Our ICIP plan, for anybody that doesn't know, establishes planning priorities for future projects for the city. DFA encouraged municipal entities to annually review, prioritize, and adopt by resolution the new plan. So attached you have a list of the current projects. These projects were presented to the public during a regular scheduled PUAB meeting on the 21st of May, mainly with emphasis that the PUAB was on water, wastewater, and electric projects. And then we also presented a presentation to you, the Commission, on June 27th with kind of an update or overview of the new ICIP guidelines. You guys as City Commission, with public comment, can add and delete projects from the list that we've provided, and then we have to rank those projects for fiscal year starting with 2020 and ending with 2024. And then, of course, the list will have to be adopted by City Commission and resolution. Once you guys have adopted that list, then I will update the database online to reflect the approved projects and ranking, and the deadline for updating this list is September 4th. I passed out a worksheet, or gave you guys a worksheet to review. With that, there's staff recommendation. I know one of the number one priorities, as mentioned previously, to maybe add into the list we haven't had previously, is the hospital renovations. The items I have listed here in gray are staff recommendations to delete at this time. Some of the new changes to the ICIP plan was a reminder to all municipalities that this is no longer a wish list. This needs to be projects that are shovel-ready for funding, and they need us to shorten our list considerably. Some of these that are in the delete column have been on our list for a very long time and may not reflect the priorities at this time. And I can stand for question. We can go by these one by one, or if you guys have looked over the list and you just have some questions or comments, whichever the commission desires.
Thank you, Tracy. Any questions? Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, Tracy, just when you were thinking about the priorities, you know how Commissioner Clark really hugs water lines and stuff like that. I'm sorry, there's a break in my place and it will be fixed immediately. But my concern is that the booster station, why that was put below the water distribution line replacement. Is there a connection between the two, that the line needs to be replaced in the...
So currently the list that you have in the rankings were what the commission agreed on last year.
Okay.
So what you see left on the list, I didn't change the rankings at all. That's for you guys to do. It just reflects the projects we want to, as staff, we would like to keep on the list. And then you guys get to re-rank them again this year for your priorities.
So you would know more about that than I would, I'm sure, and so would Manager Fuentes. Would you keep the booster station below the water distribution line?
I know that I had spoke with our water supervisor, Arnie, in regards to the importance of leaving that one on. I think it's kind of a combination of, can we rank them the same?
I'm kind of wondering, yeah, because they kind of go hand in hand, don't they not?
They do. I mean, both of them are a big concern. I think part of it, there again, comes down to a shovel-ready project. We are, with water distribution lines, it's almost an instantaneous because we're just replacing existing lines. So we don't have to go through a whole engineering or environmental process. When it comes to the Morgan Street booster station improvements, it may require phases or a couple of steps.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and Commissioner Clark, so maybe, yeah, for clarification, just let me, for the highlighted project, go back to this list. And the one big difference in this year's ICIP and priority project, and I want to highlight, is the very first one, which is hospital renovation. I think every entity in Sierra County is going to make their number one priority project. And for purposes of the legislature, this is the only project that will be submitted. That is something that's being discussed at the governing board, at the JPC, and it's probably going to come back to each entity a memorandum or some sort of formalized action that would say the hospital is our number one priority, which means that the other projects, even though they're in our RCIP, for other funding agencies' purposes, we need to leave them there. But for legislative appropriation, the hospital will be the only appropriation. In regards to we currently have the PR for the water system. I think a couple of years ago, we conducted that PR analysis, which identified several lines that needed to be replaced. And our current application, which I believe is going to be discussed later on the agenda, with the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, which looks good, and Tracy will share the good news, is that that's already in the works, being worked on. We are currently have an application also that we're going to be applying for USDA funding. And I guess maybe that's a question for Tracy or Arnie. In the new proposed application, does it mention Morgan in that application?
For the USDA?
Yes, for the USDA.
No, that's the Cook Street treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and the PER is specific with the Cook Street and then the downtown water lines.
So since we haven't done any preliminary engineering reports on those projects, then the next step this fiscal year would be, if that is a high priority for the commission and the system and the PUAB, if we all agree that Morgan should be the next one that we should be focusing on, then we would have to allocate some sort of local funds to start doing a PER analysis, that which in turn will give us a better application for the funding agencies. But this year, we're going after Clean Water Revolving Loan money for the water system and USDA.
Correct.
And so just wanted to kind of share that information.
So just for clarification, Ms. Burnett, basically, if we're putting this ICIP together, but we're really kind of going to legislature for hospital, this is a priority list for us internally, maybe taking this to grant monies and loan monies and other kind of things too, so.
Correct. A lot of funding places require items that we're requesting funds for beyond the ICIP. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why we're making that distinction here. This is more for our benefit this year than anything else, is to give you some direction on what's the best place to go first.
Well, we can always hope that the state gets a lot of money and allocates.
Yeah, we could hope and pray, but
Right.
let's not put our budget on it. Thank you, Ms. Burnett. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Clark. Any other concerns or questions? Yes. Commissioner Hessler.
Just a question, and if we can add to this list. What my concern is that we're going to have a multi-million-dollar facility in the hospital, and obviously that should be our number one request. But the avenues that go there, Gold Street and 9th Street, they're both in really deplorable condition. And we're going to have a multi-million-dollar facility, which is going to be state-of-the-art for our community. I would sure like to see those streets improved with an overlay of some sort, so that people can get to the hospital in a safe manner, and the ambulances can get up and down those streets. I think that would be an important consideration for me.
I have to agree with
Okay. Mr. Buck?
I have to agree with him on that. I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
And maybe Tracy, for just Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Hessler, just for clarification, I think, just to emphasize, I think they want ready, shovel-ready kind of projects. So if the commissioners add that project to the list, then is the direction to staff is to begin looking at internal funds to begin some sort of preliminary work to start working on those streets. And I think that's what that's part of the direction we need now, is with these changes that are occurring, is we need to kind of almost have some sort of plans ready to say, we're ready to go if you give us the money. But I also want to remind the commission that we are going to be coming back with under my report, I was going to share with you an update on the downtown streets, the all-in-one projects that also will require a significant amount of funds. So just wanted to kind of share that information. If they're added to this list, the assumption is that we're going to start really putting money into those projects from our own first local funds.
And we can prioritize that project lower if it's not shovel-ready, so that we can get the research done. But I'd like to see it on the list somewhere so that we don't forget about it.
Sure.
Okay. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to move on now, still in public, and there is no public that signed up as an opponent and/or a proponent of the infrastructure capital improvements plan. So we're going to be now on G2, a public hearing, request for variance to make front setback 15 instead of 20 and rear setback 9 instead of 15 for a mobile home that is going potentially would be located at 1005 Bosque Street here in Truth or Consequences. The applicant is Mr. Walter, is it pronounced Pucci? Pucci. And our presenter is Susanna Diller, our P&Z administrator.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could maybe just make a few helpful comments.
Sure.
What I thought I would do is hand the commission a copy of our ordinance. One is for the variance, and one for a special use permit, which comes up next. That way you'll have in front of you as you listen to the public hearing and make comments. Okay. And one reason I wanted to have this because when you make a determination when it's later on the agenda, I'm hoping you'll make some references to the ordinance about some of the findings that are included in the ordinance. That way it'll reflect, that we have some harmony between what the ordinance says and what your ruling is. Ultimately, depending on your ruling, I may be recommending I do a written decision later on if we get to that point. So that's why it's good to hear what your determination is going to be at that point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed, this is a quasi-legal piece of business that we're going to be conducting. So I'm going to ask Ms. Canton to swear in Susanna and Mr. Pucci. And there's another name here. Is there someone else who signed up as a proponent? I cannot. Is that Tuar? It looks like Towair or something like that. Is there anyone even close to that? All right, so I guess it's just the two. If you could please be sworn in.
Please raise your hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. We will first start with staff presentation by Ms. Dillon.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. So I'm presenting the variance here for Mr. Pucci. He's requesting setbacks. He's recently purchased a lot in Truth or Consequences over in the Bosque neighborhood there off of 3rd, and is seeking a variance to the setbacks in that area. The setbacks in the front are 20 feet and in the rear are 15 feet. And he has a mobile home that does not meet those, would not allow him to meet those setbacks if he placed it on the lot. So he's requesting a variance that would allow the front setbacks to be 15 instead of 20 feet, and the rear setbacks 9 instead of 15. So a total of 11 feet of relief on the setbacks there. And the staff recommendation here is that the staff is concerned that though the applicant would undoubtedly take care of his lot and would likely be an asset to that neighborhood, improve the overall character of the neighborhood. If any of you have been up there, it can be a little rough. But staff is concerned commission may set an overly permissive precedent by allowing this variance. Setbacks are something people come up to us about regularly and ask for, oh, can we move this? Can we do that? Allowing this may set an overly permissive precedent, and for this reason, staff does recommend denial of the variance.
Okay, and the next part of the process would be the commission has an opportunity to question staff. Commissioner Clark.
Yes. Ms. Diller, I just have one question, and I'm trying to rack my memory banks, but it seems to me that several months ago, and I believe you were here when you and Mr. Travis presented a couple of requests for variances at a mobile home park for 2 mobile homes. Do you remember that?
I am familiar with what you're talking about. I don't know that I was present for the presentation, but I'm familiar with what you're talking about.
And one of them was a very small variance, and I believe we approved that, and another one was a large variance, and I believe we did not. So I don't know if you remember, Attorney Rubin, but it seems, if I'm not mistaken, we've already established a precedent of not allowing these large variances. And if that's the case, I think your comments will take in.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anybody remember?
I do remember, and I remember drawing, yeah, you are correct, there was a denial. I remember drawing up an order, as a matter of fact, because I was concerned in case there was an appeal, we need to have a written opinion of this. That's why I made my comments earlier. Yes, you are correct. That's what happened.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. Thank you, Mayor.
The denial came in place when there was a 2-feet request for a variance, and then there was a porch, the distance in between, and we voted to not allow that.
That's basically what I remember, but I don't remember the exact details of the numbers.
And as I look at the variance request here, it says, the variance shall provide relief from the strict application. So that means to me that if it's close, then we may want to allow that relief, but in certain situations, if we think the distance is too great, then obviously we'd have to figure that one out.
I'd just like to make my opinion heard. First of all, I'm upset that this has even come to the commission, because whoever sold Mr. Pucci the piece of property, I do not believe did due diligence and let that gentleman know that, if you want to put this size of a trailer on this small piece of property, you're going to have to ask for a variance. And that, to the best of my knowledge, was never taken into consideration. I drove up there again last night, and I am just wondering if my fellow commissioners would just like to entertain the idea, since there doesn't seem to be a fire issue in getting fire trucks in like a small confined area that we had at the other location, to So everyone's setback is the same, and that's what you see is the front of the building, that we allow Mr. Pucci to set back, we demand that he set back the 20 feet, which would give him 4 feet in the rear, because the rear faces on an alley. So, I feel a little, this was not our doings. I think the realtor should have told him, but he's bought a piece of property, from what I understand, that if we rule against him, he now owns a piece of dirt that he can't do anything with. And I was thinking that, just for your consideration as we move forward, that might be a way to move forward, to keep the integrity of the front of that street, everyone looking the same. Who's going to go into an alley and drive an alley? Mr. Manager Fuentes.
I just wanted to kind of just bring to your attention the process.
Right, no, I understand.
And because that discussion will come at the regular.
I got it. I agree with that. Yeah, I should have stepped in also. That actually matters.
I get carried away.
Yeah, but
sorry. All right. Any further questions from staff? All right, then the next one will be Mr. Pucci.
Well, he has a right to.
Here we go. Do you have any questions to ask of staff? Okay, all right, that's not, I understand your concern. Do you have any questions for Ms. Diller particularly about the application?
And you'll have
For the
a
variance.
chance to speak in just a moment if you have any
Yeah.
questions for me.
Okay, all right, then thank you. Mr. Pucci, you've been sworn in. Could you come up to the microphone, please? And would you like to make your statement, your presentation, sir?
Well, the only thing I'd say is that,
Into the microphone. so we
Okay,
can pick
the only
up.
thing I'd say is when, about the lot, I wasn't asked about the size of the motorhome or anything like that, and I was told the lot was 50 by 100, so assuming it'd be big enough for my motorhome. It's 18 by 80, but it's actually 76 foot. And they never mentioned to me, y'all mentioned about the variance. I would have looked into it a little bit more closer before about the lot. I'd like to get involved in the community and help the whole area there, kind of clean up the place and make it look more appealable. So, what else to say? I'm willing to invest in the community. I've got a business here. I'm intending to open up another office. I own a big corporation in Texas and plan to work in Mexico, Arizona. And temporarily, I wanted to bring that motor home here as fast as brand new. So instead of building it out, it takes about 4 or 5 years before I decide whether I want to build a house somewhere close to the lake or here in town. I don't know yet.
Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
Does the commission have any questions of Mr. Pucci? Commissioner Clark?
Mr. Pucci, have you moved that mobile home from one place to another before?
Just one time after we bought it.
Was it here in New Mexico?
No, I was in Texas.
It was in Texas?
Yes.
Did you ever have a problem, was the lot about the same size, or did you ever have a problem with needing a variance to set the mobile home in Texas? So the lot was maybe larger?
Pardon me?
The lot was larger in Texas, maybe?
Yeah, I moved it, I already owned a property in Texas. I moved it there temporarily, and then I moved it to El Paso when there was a mobile home community, so I didn't purchase it, I was just renting it.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
it was a temporary move until we decided exactly where we wanted to permanently move, either New Mexico or near El Paso.
Right, thank you, Mr. Pucci.
Okay, staff. Susanna, do you have any questions for Mr. Pucci? No. Okay. Mr. Pucci, thank you very much. You're welcome. Appreciate it. There are no opponents for this application. Hearing none, I will close that portion, and we will move to number 3, which is the public hearing request for a special use permit to do a live-work art cafe at 422 North Broadway in Truth or Consequences. The applicant is Ingo, is it pronounced Hopner, sir? Hopner. And welcome to your city. And our presenter is Susanna Dillon.
And do we need to do the swearing in
Yes,
process
we have
again?
the same process, I'm
Oh,
sorry, yes.
I thought you were sworn in. She
Well,
was
I am,
already
but there's
sworn-
other-
Yeah,
I
okay.
would swear them both and make it a new hearing.
Okay, could you stand up, sir, and be sworn in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
You want to swear in everybody that signed up?
Yeah, okay, good idea. Thank you. Let's do this one at a time. All at once. Let's see. Jasmine Brown, could you please stand up? Galen, could you please stand up? Ingo has already been sworn in. Sid Bryan, could you please stand up? And Hans, I believe, has left the hall. So if you could swear in those folks, please.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Susanna, you're up.
Alrighty, hello everybody again. So this is presenting a special use permit request to do a Live Work Art Cafe at 422 North Broadway. Ingo Hepner is a recent resident to TRC and is hoping to open an art gallery and cafe space on Broadway. Living units along Broadway, Main, and Date Streets require a special use permit for approval. And this is a situation where we would be approving the use. So the certificate of occupancy still needs to come from the state to actually open the business. What the commission is doing here is saying, yes, we are okay with this space being used in this manner. And this address has actually been used as a live work space before, I believe by January. I don't know if at any point before her. So there is precedent for this being a live work unit there along Broadway, and staff recommends approval of this special use permit.
Okay. Questions from the commission? Concerns?
Yeah.
Commissioner Clark?
So, Attorney Rubin, thank you for making this copy. I did find it last night and read it.
Oh, good. Okay.
So there's, obviously a difference between a special use permit and the other one that we use for
Variance.
business is the variances. One thing that wasn't really clear is it the 1/4 applied to a special use permit of living space, and the rest has to be 3/4, because that's in the other for home businesses? Because I guess residential and commercial are going to be a little bit different. The other question I had, and I did ask the mayor about this one yesterday, is that that I had remembered about 10, 12 years ago when an issue came up, and it was the home-based businesses. Attorney, you probably remember this, and the living on Date and Main and Broadway. Mr. Bryan, you probably remember this one with me too. And it was a big issue about, well, if you're already living there and you have a business, then you can be grandfathered into it. If you want to do it afterwards, you can't. You have to get a special use permit for it. And in going through that and having lived in businesses myself, and it's like, the door's always knocking and you're living there, and it's kind of annoying. But going back through this and owning a property on Broadway and on Main Street myself, basically Main Street, my conclusion was this, that if somebody wants to go to the effort to update a building and to live there and put a business on one of our streets, that it's in our best interest to accommodate that, because that's what we try to do, is that not we put out the effort to gain the effort. And I don't see anything, unless I'm incorrect in reading this ordinance, that precludes somebody living in a business. And there was somebody many years ago who made a big stink about having been grandfathered in, et cetera, and that there were only certain amounts of buildings that would allow to have a living space in the back. And I personally haven't seen that be a problem, as long as the business is open X amount of days during the week, so you're contributing to the community. And that's not written into this ordinance either, but that's what I remember hearing when this debate was going on, and I believe that was in 2006. That as long as the front door is open, and I thought it was 5 days, but 4 days, whatever it is, that it is a contribution to the community, and where that person lives is their business. Am I incorrect?
Well, And of course, I agree with that. It might be more appropriate, let's go ahead and finish the public hearing and with the
I'm just
question.
trying to remember what the rule is on this one before the staff is making a recommendation.
Well, I think, okay, one, again, I guess I would want us to stick close to what the ordinance says, the provisions for special use permit, and then the paragraph 1, that these are the factors that, you need to, that you need to consider. However, the comments you made, I think, all play into these factors are listed here in the ordinance. So I think, I'm kind of giving you a half-hearted yes, actually, to your question, because I think what you talk about does play into what this increased congestion. Does this create any safety issues? So I think that's really how you would look at it.
Okay. Well, and, I mean, I would be surprised if part of the reason this maybe hasn't ever actually found its way into the code, and specifically addressing these sorts of situations, is because at some point the commission probably wanted to be able to take them on a case-by-case basis and look at sort of the intent of the business and how the shop was going to be set up. Because really the requirement for in a C1 district, you can live there by right, except along Broadway, Main, and Dayton. I think that was intended to preserve sort of the business-facing aspect, which I know Mr. Hepner intends to do.
Yeah, I was just
So that
trying to
would
get
be,
clarification on
support there.
what we really can and can't do, because this is vague to me. A little bit vague. But it does give us an out. I think it gives us an opportunity to do a special use permit if we want. Maybe that was the intent of the vagueness of this. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Ingo, do you have any questions of staff? Okay, there are no opponents, so we will then move on. Thank you. I'm going to have to start calling them. Okay, Jasna, you signed up first, please.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners, City Manager, Mayor, and the City Clerk. I'm Yasna Brown. I am a fairly local resident of TRC. I own a local business behind Broadway, Magusta Food Truck, and I'm here to support this decision that the businesses on Broadway and Main have an option of live-in business. We believe, I'm here also on behalf of Main Street. And I don't know if I followed the regulations. I'm here to represent Linda in her absence. So I'm here to just, on behalf of Main Street, say that we support local businesses on Main Street and Broadway, and people living in downtown increases the vitality of our town. There's a lot more going on where people live in downtown. There are plenty of examples around the country where vibrant downtowns allow living quarters and working quarters in the same area. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Commissioner, have any questions? I guess not. All right, moving on. Galen?
Hello, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager. My name is Galen Brown, and I'm her husband. We are business partners downtown, and personally, I'm all for the idea of mixed use in general with business and living, and I think that we all want downtown to become more interesting and with more activities and more business in general. I think I love his plans. I hope he can proceed as he desires, and I think this is the kind of thing that TRC could use more of. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, any questions from the Commission? Next, Ingo, you're up if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, my name is Ingo Hepner. Very short about me. I came to the U.S. here from Germany with the German Air Force in '96. I was stationed at Holloman Air Force Base. I was done with my service in 2002. In 2003, I came back to the U.S. and worked as a civilian for Holloman, and like a lot of people know, that here the German part of Holloman is leaving. And then they pretty much the decision came up, what do I do next? And here my entire family, my mom, my dad here owned restaurants, worked in big hotels, and for me was it always a dream to open a small place here, coffee shop, where art, music, enjoying company, getting people together. that they have a place to meet, to exchange ideas, and here just here have fun, listen to good music, and that's here when I came for my back. I came here very often here to stay at Hot Springs. And last Christmas I was here when I got the news for Christmas pretty much here, April, your time is up and we have to let you go. And I said, okay, what next? And so I decided to stay and look around in this town and see what the potential is. And I saw a lot of potential, and especially when I start meeting local people around here and business owners, I was very impressed. And I saw the potential and the willingness to grow as a community. And I said, here, what better way of doing here the business to come to a community who is willing to go forward. I also have a non-profit organization for youth work, and I tried here very hard for the last 3 years to get it running also in Alamogordo. And Alamogordo is very closed up when it comes to new things. They make it pretty difficult. And when I came here and I met Ms. Diller, and I had no idea what the procedures is and everything. And of course with the language barrier as well, she was absolutely amazing. She helped me as much as she could with the forms, with everything, the city all together. They helped me to get my licenses to everywhere where they can. So that is for me proof that yes, I have support of the city and the community to open a small business. And to make it, of course, here easier for me as well, here financially, especially for the startup and everything, while I have here, I pretty much put everything I got into it. And yeah, I'm just here, it would help me a lot if I could stay and here, of course, here to be open more often and so on and be flexible in that times. And yeah, to improve downtown and to bring in some ideas as well. And I hope you guys here are open for ideas as well.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much. The next, Sid, do you want to say something? Yes, excuse me.
Do you want to offer questions for staff or?
I thought I just did. And there was no question. Yeah.
She has no questions, so.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Sid Bryan. I just agree with the previous speakers. I think he has been given support. When he came into my office asking if he could do this, I said he had to check with the city, which was the first thing he did, and he more or less, and they gave him a go-ahead at that point, but that was before our building inspector left. And what happens when he's left is now we have to deal with the state. And the state has the attitude that, you know, the hearing official on the front page of all their books, it says that that hearing official can give waivers to requirements and variances. And it's not something that they necessarily want to do, but we have no one here who's in a position to be that hearing official. So it makes it difficult when you do something, and I think this is just a growing problem or whatever it is, but we have to figure out how we mesh what we have with the state so that we don't have run into the conflict as much. There's only, I think there's 13 districts or areas where they have where they're smaller, and they have been relying on their own building inspector, but now they have to have a building, if they want to do that, they have to have a building inspector, plus they have to have a plumbing contractor an electrical contractor and an engineer. There aren't even that many engineers in the whole, in our county and in Diana County anyway. But it makes it difficult because even if he gets approval here, he's still having to go through stuff there. If we had, if they eventually work out something where there's an official that would be sort of representing the state and the local areas, not just ours, where we have to do this, it would make it easier and save a lot of time and effort, because he moved on to a certain extent, and then through no fault of his, there were changes, and he's now having difficulties in getting his opening. Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other speakers, I will close the public hearings, and moving on real quickly because Commissioner Baca has to leave at 11:45. I'd like to see if we can accomplish the rest of the agenda in the next 45 minutes. H1, discussion action resolution number 07, 2018-2019, approval for ICIP for 2020-2024. Ms. Tracy Burnett.
Mayor and Commissioners, at this time, I'd like to give a quick ranking on the projects, and then stand for discussion and then your approval if you accept them. So for the year 2020, for project number 1, hospital renovations. For the years 2021, project number 1 would be our Cook Street Water Treatment Facility. However, I would revise that to also include all the downtown water lines as noted in our PER. Project number 2 for 2021 would be our water distribution line replacement, and that would be because we do have a current application with drinking water. Project number 3 for 2021 would be the downtown Main Street roadway improvements. We do have a current pending capital appropriation on that. Then I would like to do project number 4 for 2021 for the Morgan Street, and so we'll bump that up. In the year 2022, I'd like to combine the downtown storm and surface water control and citywide storm drain improvements, and then maybe revise that request for starting with planning, since they want us to separate those down. For the year 2023, we could do I accidentally graded out, and I do apologize for that. It would be the Water Well North, and that is for looking at possible extension of water wells to meet the airport area. I would get with staff to discuss possible planning, but if we can put that in the year 2023. And then for the year 2024, project number 1 would be the construction and demolition landfill, and project number 2 would be our wastewater treatment plant. As we already know, we've got funding for that, so it needs to be on my list, but it's almost completed, so we don't need to have it all the way up. At this time, I can stand for questions or revision of any of that.
Manager Fuentes.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I just wanted to kind of maybe ask for the specific streets that Commissioner Heschler indicated. That way we could put them on the list as well and possibly.
Yes, Golden Knight, and both of them were major thoroughfares leading directly, one from Broadway and one from 3rd Street directly to the hospital.
Correct. Ranking?
What year? Yeah.
Well, do we have to do some studies first, or it's
So
not a show?
for maybe anywhere in the maybe 2023?
Yeah. Put him in there.
Move it up next year?
Sure.
20.
Start working.
Okay, so we have heard staff's suggestion. Are we comfortable with it? Do we
I
want
only
to
have
move
just one question.
something around, Major?
Manager Fuentes, are we doing an experimental all-in-one on one of those streets downtown this year? So when Ms. Burnett says all of the downtown water lines, we will have had one street where we've already done the replacement, kind of know how that works.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Clark, we are meeting with an engineering firm that's given us some preliminary information on the effort that it's going to take to work on Sims and McAdoo to replace all the water lines, the sewer lines, and all of the taps. And we have that, I believe, later this week.
Yeah, we have they'll actually present PUAB this month and then come to the
And
commission.
so, yes, and then we're going to have more information for you all to present. And so that is going to be coming before the commissioners.
And so I like the fact that you put the downtown water lines and the downtown Main Street roadway improvements all together in the same year.
Yes. Now, let me clarify that the downtown water lines go with the Cook Street application to USDA, and that is just the water lines, because that is within our PER, and that's an application I'm working on for approximately $8.9 million to USDA. So it doesn't include the sewer or the streets in that particular application.
We'll figure out how to coordinate all that, so it's all being done at the same time. Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or concerns? I will stand for then a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, that we accept as Ms. Burnett has presented, with the exception of an addition for looking at the roadway repavement on Golden 9th Street and putting that in for 2023.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clark, a second by Commissioner Heschler. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, we have roll call, please.
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Ralph Esch?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes. It carries. Thank you very much. The next item is discussion action, resolution number 08-2018-2019, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority. Our presenter is Ms. Tracy Burnett.
Mayor and Commission, so the City of Truth or Consequence is the infrastructure upgrade project for the water lines that were listed within our design analysis report. Did make the funding and the 2019 annual fundable list generated by the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. The application was for, the revised application was for $1,158,797. Mr. Fuentes and staff and I had a conference call with the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, and I'm happy to say that it looks like they're approving us to continue forward with the application process for these funds. The forgiveness amount on that loan would be approximately $500,000. We haven't received anything formal in writing. This was just given to us over the phone. For the remainder amount of the loan, which would be $658,797 approximately, we would be looking at 0% interest payback for the first $600,000, and after that $600,000, the interest rate would be roughly 1 to 2%. Part of the application process is approving a resolution for me to go ahead and submit the financials and the remaining application.
Did I hear correctly? I'm smiling from ear to ear. Did I hear that we're only going to have to pay interest on $58,000? They're going to forgive?
Roughly, yes, yes.
Wow. Great job.
I don't want you to quote me the exact amount because I don't have the piece of paper that gives me the exact amount, but they did say approximately 50%.
You should not leave your office and be writing more grants, Mr. Burnett. All right, questions by the commission? Hearing none and seeing none, I will call for a motion, please.
Mayor Green, I move that we approve resolution number 08-2018/2019, authorizing and approving submission of completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority as presented by Tracy Burnett.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschel and a second by
Clark.
Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes. Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your effort, and I know sometimes these are not done in a vacuum, so whoever else in other departments that you worked for, I think I have the feeling of the commission, thank them for us.
Most
Job well
definitely.
done.
A great collaboration between department heads and the financial offices as well as our manager.
Excellent. Well, job well
I
done.
agree.
Thank you. We hope to see you again real quick for something else, another goodie. Discussion action, number 3, request for variance to make front setback 15 feet instead of 20 and rear setbacks 9 instead of 15 for a mobile home at 1005 Bosque here in Truth or Consequences. The applicant is Mr. Walter Pucci. We have heard all parts, and if there are any further questions, and I apologize for getting ahead of myself on the process. I will try to control my enthusiasm sometimes. So are there any questions for Ms. Dillon? Commissioner Clark? It's a tough one.
I don't know if this is the right person to ask, because the question really is to the real estate agent and this gentleman who wants to move into our community and has done a lot of research and has made a decision. And I had no idea, but I think your comment is well made, and I don't mind that you took it out of context because I've had a chance to think about it. And, you know, I'm reading what the responsibilities of you know, our rental properties and real estate and sales and stuff like that. And I'm just really disappointed that you purchased a piece of property, and I would think that if you're talking to a real estate agent, you would say, I intend to move a mobile home on it, and the real estate agent would say, well, you need to have this many setbacks. And I would love to ask the real estate agent that question. I don't know if it's inappropriate to ask Mr. Bryan at the moment, but do you normally ask the questions of what people are going to use raw land for? Do we know if there's utility hookups and water lines available there? And I'm just really disappointed that this is being brought to us without that kind of knowledge. Not that you would know. I'm not disappointed in you at all. I'm just kind of disappointed that somebody would buy a piece of property and then have to come in afterwards and go, oh, whoops. I now own some property, but I can't plop the house on that I want to put into it. And I don't know where the disappointment goes to, but I'm just disappointed.
I might suggest, I appreciate your sentiments, Commissioner Clark, because those were my sentiments when I heard this. I would love, it would be appropriate for Susanna to maybe get with the Sierra County Realtors Association, which I believe there is an entity such as that exists, and maybe make a presentation so they have and their agents have a better understanding of the process of how we're trying to run the city and what we're trying to accomplish with that process. And maybe that might at least start a conversation between city and the agencies that are working with potential citizens who are willing to invest in our community, and then all of a sudden get hammered for lack of information, for lack of understanding. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I'll just throw it out there.
Well, and that's, I mean, definitely something I can look at doing, but I would just say, I think to both your points, I field calls regularly from realtors who are doing exactly that type of research on behalf of prospective clients who want to know what the zoning is, who have some, you know, a client who wants to do a specific thing and they're calling to check on the setbacks and on our mobile home ordinances. And so I don't necessarily know that it is a failing of the Realtor system as much as it was perhaps in this instance where there was just not due diligence done, because I do speak regularly with realtors both in town and kind of working remotely from Las Cruces who are checking on things for clients. So that is a conversation I have with people pretty often, but not in this case, clearly.
Commissioner Heschel.
Yeah, to that point, I guess I would say that if I were moving a piece of property or bought a piece of property and I was moving a trailer onto it, one of the questions I'm going to ask is that, does this trailer fit on this piece of property? And that's where the due diligence comes in on both sides. Does this trailer fit on this piece of property, and can I legally do this? And I don't know if that was done in this regard or not. And, you know.
Commissioner, that's why I asked the question of
Right.
Mr. Pucci about the Texas one, having moved a mobile home onto a property before and knew to ask those questions or not. And I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Pucci, do you have an answer? Can you go up to the, wait till you get on the microphone so we can pick up your
When I
voice.
went to visit the realtor, I told him specifically what I wanted the land for. And I did tell her I had a 18 by 80 foot, that's what it was called, but it was a 76 foot mobile home. And she told me that the lot was big enough, 50 by 100. She didn't tell me anything about the city ordinance about so many feet. I didn't find out till after I already bought it, when I went and talked to the other property owners, and they told me. They're the ones that told me that.
Well, as I say, Commissioner Clark, I go, oh, I beg your pardon.
That's fine.
Step on your toes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
guess the only other concern I have is, and there's a reason we have setbacks. And so I would sure like to hear from, I'm sad that utility's gone already, but, if we allow the setback, what effect it would have on that trailer park in that area, and if health and safety is compromised in any way. And, lacking that information, I don't know if I can make that decision, so.
So I can speak to that. First of all, it's not a trailer park. It is actually a neighborhood area. It's not a mobile home park. But second, the alley behind this property is actually there's a pretty steep grade down to the alley. And then there's the next row of houses. So it's not that it would ever be particularly close to another structure. There's a pretty significant grade change between one side of the alley and the other because of that steep wall leading up to Mr. Pucci's property. So the rear setback isn't going to present a fire hazard in the way it might in other cases. And because of that, fairly steep wall, hill there, I guess. I mean, for him to move the trailer that far to the rear of the property, he would have to take reinforcement measures anyway, as you see people do with the railroad ties, and build that up so it was stable enough to support the structure and have an appropriate foundation. So then it wouldn't have any impact on the drivability of the alley at any point. It would be pretty secure. And those are measures he would have to take just to be able to have it there safely if that was something that the commission allowed to, as Mayor Green suggested, meet the 20-foot setback and then only have, I think it would be 4 feet in the rear. He would just be backing up against a drop, basically.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. And the other question I guess I have is that usually in these regards we have some testimony from neighbors. Is anyone else affected negatively by this?
They were all notified by certified mail, and notice was posted on the property, the 15 days, and none of them were here. And you all signed up on the sheet to speak? Okay.
She didn't speak.
I don't know if there's sort of a
Was there
process
someone
there.
that was written down for this gentleman when we were having the public hearings
No,
that
just-
didn't speak because
Well,
we
there was a
couldn't
name
pronounce
that-
the name?
Can I
And
have that, clerk, please? Mr. Varian. There was no opponents. There was, again, this signature, is there this is under staff, and maybe someone put the name in the wrong column. Judy Hertzler? Okay. Did you, Jay, am I allowed to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Were you a proponent or opponent?
Well, I was just wanting to get more information about it, because, when you first come down that street, there's a lot of...
Can you please come up and just introduce yourself, and just so we have a record of this, please?
I'm Judy Hertzler, and I have a home that's 2 stores down, a rental home. And my only concern was, I don't see a problem with it. It can legally be set back further. I don't think that's an issue because there's an 8-foot drop or whatever in an alley, so I don't think that would affect anybody behind him. But my only concern was how it would fit in with the neighborhood in terms of the mobile home. I don't know, do you have a newer mobile home?
Yeah, it's fairly new. I'd like to shake that.
Yeah, that would make a whole difference because you can see the difference coming down the street.
Let me mention this, I think...
I don't want to start going back.
I know, I'm just wondering, actually, you do have a lot of discretion here. If you want to reopen the public hearing, it's really nothing I really would be in favor of, but, maybe if you feel the circumstance that would cause you to do that, because maybe there was some misunderstanding when you called the public hearing earlier, and Ms. Hertzler didn't hear it, I don't really know, but you might want to go into why she wasn't testifying during the public hearing before we hear this.
Oh, I think it's because you couldn't pronounce the name and they weren't in the audience.
Yeah, okay. So either we could do 2 things. We can go back into a public hearing, or can we use Ms. Hertzler's comments under public comment?
Mayor,
Would that be easier, Jay?
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'm thinking that I'm hearing some questions coming out of my mouth and out of your mouth and out of Commissioner Hessler's mouth. And I'm wondering if we don't really have enough good information especially finding out the omissions of maybe possibly the real estate, that maybe we're not really equipped to make a good decision today on this one way or the other.
All right, so, Susanna?
What sort of information are you looking for specifically?
I have a problem with the fact that we turned down we turned down a variance request before, and if we approve this one, then we're flip-flopping. We're not being consistent. And two, I'm really curious to find out why this gentleman sold a piece of property with the knowledge that there was this particular piece of equipment going on it that won't fit.
And correct me if I'm wrong, my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Clark, I thought the reason, I might have something confused, but I thought the reason we turned down that other variance at the trailer park that two gentlemen had purchased was because of a safety issue of not being able to get a fire truck into and safely fight that fire and protect the volunteer fire department. I thought that was the reason that we turned it down.
And Mayor, we had the fire chief here at that particular moment to give us that information.
Right.
To Commissioner Heschler's point, he's brought that up, and we don't have that information here today. We don't know if he could get to that from the back alley on the
Did we
property.
check, Ms. Dillard, was the chief involved in any of the discussions or preparation of information for this item, agenda item?
No.
Commissioner?
Ms. Dillard, the location for this proposed trailer to move into, is it mostly frame-built residences in that neighborhood? Are there other trailers in the neighborhood? What's the makeup of the neighborhood?
There are other trailers in the neighborhood. There is some frame built, but what should we say, it's at least 50-50.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and maybe Jay, if you can just, for purposes of clarification, maybe go over some of the, I think there's specific reasons where variances can be granted or can be denied. Just so that make sure we're all following the code, because this will be the final determination will be based on the ruling, written, correct?
Yes, yes.
So there will be specific facts that will have to be stated that will tie into the code.
Okay.
So can you go over those?
Let's take, I guess really the answer there would be 11-5-5, which is as we talked about before, which would be subparagraph A. And I can just read what it says. Provisions for variance. 1, the subject property must be irregular, narrow, shallow, or steep, or otherwise have physical conditions where application of the requirements of this code would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship to the owner in the use of his land or building. That's number 1. Okay, then number 2 just talks about the notice, which I don't know that we have to.
I mean, I think what you just read is really the...
I think so too. Well, number 3 is also, I think we do need to articulate number 3, because that goes into the issue, the safety issue. Variance shall not be granted in such cases where it would adversely affect adjoining properties, impair established property values, or endanger public safety. And the reason why that was important, I think when we had the previous hearing several months ago, as you articulated, Commissioner Clark, I think we did hang our hat on that one, the public safety issue. Yeah.
And I would just say, I mean, I understand if you want further information gathered at some point, we could discuss what that would look like and whether that would then come back before you all or what that process would be. But in that situation, my understanding in the trailer park where you can keep referencing this previous case, one of the issues was that it was one of the trailers was protruding into the fire lane, into the drive lane, so it was actually inhibiting vehicular access. And the other was that they wanted to place it too close to another unit, so there wouldn't have been 10 feet between, which is the requirement between structures for fire egress. So this situation doesn't actually impact either of those, because in no dimension is it more than 10 feet close to another structure, and it wouldn't be impeding on any sort of drive lane or access. But if the commission feels that further information is required or, something else, I can definitely do that.
You know, I guess what's difficult for me in these situations is you have to take personal feelings out of these things. And barring any physical reason for a variance, a miscommunication between the realtor and the owner or the purchaser of the home, I don't know if that would fall under a variance. And so I think we'll have to take that into consideration. I'm not opposed to delaying this if we needed to get further information to get that clarification. But I really do have a problem with, like I said, we can't be personally involved with any of this. We have to make a decision based upon what's best for the community and what the intent was for the variance, the reasons that we allow variances.
And ultimately, the failure in this case was a communication between the realtor and Mr. Pucci, whoever that ultimately falls on. But that isn't something, it is not a situation we created for them.
I think that's important to note.
I think it's important to know too, Commissioner Heschler, you're absolutely correct, but we're being asked to correct somebody else's mistake.
Is that our job?
That's a good question. The answer is no, I don't believe so.
Well, that being said, I don't take umbrage with that sentiment. But and I understand everyone's position. However, that said, I do not, again, I've driven that parcel, that area, twice now since this came on the agenda. You can take a look at the alley that is behind those homes, and there's not even, one maybe tire track there because there's vegetation growing over into the alley. So no one, to my mind, is using that alley whatsoever. If the structure is placed on that piece of property so that it does not inhibit egress in case of a fire to that home and or the neighbor's home on either side, I think that issue is a moot point. This is a tough call, and you're right. We're being asked to play King Solomon here when we shouldn't have been. And however, that said, I don't. My own personal opinion is, if we were to require for approval of this that home be set back 20 feet in accordance to the setback of every other home on that block. The only difference is that the back of the unit would be closer to the arroyo, or the alley rather, than the other homes along that. And I would say, with all due respect to Ms. Diller, that more than 50% of those homes are manufactured homes up there and mobile homes. So this would fit into the integrity of that, for want of a better word, subdivision for that area. However, that said, I would like to know, Ms. Herzler, do you have anything else you'd like to say? Because if that's so, I would like to swear you in so you could be part of this conversation on a legal basis, and we can hear what your concerns are.
Okay.
Okay. So.
Well, I think we need a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Okay.
I usually would frown upon that, but I think in the interest, since there was obviously a misunderstanding as to really who was signing in, you obviously didn't, so I guess this didn't hear.
So I will stand for motion to reopen the public hearing for the variance. I have a motion by Commissioner, second. So that's Commissioner Heschler and second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Herzler, could you please stand up, and you're going to be sworn in by our clerk.
I believe the other lady also wanted to say something.
Okay, and
We're opening it up.
did you want to say something
I'm the
also?
owner.
All right, no?
I'm the owner.
Okay. Did you want to be part? Okay, so did you? What is your name, ma'am? Ingram. Okay. Could you please? Okay. So, what would you like to say, Ms. Herzler?
Well, I think if he's going to have to put his mobile home back, I don't think it's going to make any difference to anybody, because there's like a 10-foot drop behind the end of the properties, and it's just an alleyway. And I can't see where I came because I was wondering what was going on, you know, with the whole thing. But if that's the issue, I can't see that it would affect anybody else. It would just be back towards the end of the property further than most of the places are.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
And, Ms. Engel?
I live on the corner, so I'm 2 lots, and to have a nice mobile home in there would be really great. On Bosque, a lot of the places are vacant and dilapidated, and it would be nice if somebody could come in and bulldoze them. The street behind, most are occupied and well kept up. So having a neighbor that's wanting to improve the area, there's not many of us out there, but it would be great. And having another nice piece of a building out there would be nice. Anyway, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Hearing no one else wants to speak, I will close the public hearing. We are now back into open session, and we have to deal once again with H3. Commissioner Ashton.
Yeah, one question for Attorney Rubin, if I may.
Yes.
Having heard what you've heard, are we in a position where we can legally grant a variance?
I think you have the discretion. I mean, again, I would like for you to just really hang your hat on one of the provisions of the ordinance. And if you're making you can make a decision one way or the other that adherence to the code would cause a hardship to the owner, or you can make a decision that we want to stick with what the code says, and it's like too large of a variance compared to what we've done before. So I think you have the discretion.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clark or Commissioner Baca, do you have any?
I'm just looking at the satellite picture of this, and it looks like, unless I'm mistaken, that there's some other buildings on that particular block that aren't exactly set in the way they're supposed to be set.
Well, the front setbacks are pretty consistent along the block
They look
as you
pretty
drive it.
consistent from my vision, but my vision's not the best.
But no, it's definitely an area that Ray and I have driven recently and have discussed. And
You know, and Commissioner, if I sort of answer your question again, I think you'd be making the determination that adherence to the code would result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship to the owner. That's up to you to make that decision.
I can't see where it's going to be a safety issue myself. On each side, it's got plenty of space. On the backside, between the alley and the 10-foot drop, we still have plenty of space for any kind of emergencies whatsoever.
Could we make a provision that we went ahead and did this variance with the proviso that the fire chief would take a look at it, and if he had any questions that would come back to us with his concerns? Could we do something like that?
You know, actually, I would probably advise against that. I think if you really need to hear from the fire chief, you ought to do that before you make the ruling.
Okay.
I would, you know.
And to Commissioner Clark's point, I mean, I think Ms. Dilla did address that, that there is not going to be a safety issue here because Mr. Pucci, if he placed a trailer on the property, he would be in compliance of the 10 feet on either side. Is that I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but the idea that, okay. I'd like to make a motion. Is there any other further comments? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance application by Mr. Pucci with the exception that we will demand that he respect our ordinance code of a setback of 20 feet from the road.
from the property line.
From the property line. Beg your pardon. Thank you. That is my motion.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, I think the 20 feet is in the front, but the rear setback has to also be stated, correct, just for clarification, because the rear will not meet that requirement.
Right. So
it has to be both.
Okay, so that there will be a 20-foot setback on the front, and that will only leave 4 feet on the backside of the dwelling.
And that would be the variance being granted, is the variance on the back.
Right, so we would be granting 11 feet of relief on the rear variance, on the rear setback, rather.
Okay,
So before we proceed, I'd like to have one question.
Yeah, sure.
So the front of the trailer, does that include the tongue or the structure, or where does the setback start and what is actually involved here? It'll be the trailer itself.
So just the front of the trailer itself.
So, I have a motion. Is there anyone second? I'll second that. I have a second by Commissioner Baca. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Mr. Pucci, welcome to Truth and Consequences. And we expect, as your neighbors expect, when I drive by there in about 6 months, I expect to see a beautification process. Thank you. We appreciate that, and we appreciate your willingness to work with your neighbors and beautify the entire area of that subdivision. Thank you very much, Susanna. I know a lot of effort and time went into this, and thank you very much for that. All right, next item is request for special use permit to do a Live Work Art Cafe at 422 North Broadway. The applicant is Ingo Hopner. Our presenter is Susanna Diller.
So, I mean, you guys heard everyone speak about it, and I guess it's in your hands at this point.
Any further questions, thoughts, comments since we had the public hearing? If not,
maybe one quick question.
I heard that one little sound. Listen, maybe I can get Mr. Commissioner Park out here on time.
I saw in the request that he intended to find alternative residents once the time presents itself, and I didn't know if we wanted to have a time limit on that. Because what we may end up doing is, if we approve this, then we may have a permanent resident there. That's the intent of this commission. I'm fine with it.
So,
but that's just my question.
I mean, and if you want, I'm sure Ingo could speak to this, but my understanding is that that was mentioned only to let you know that he wasn't ultimately going to take the business part of it away and use it solely as a residence, but instead to be clear that it's, you know, hopefully a transitional step as the business is established to find other residents within the city. But even if that were not the case, and it did ultimately become a permanent residence, that would still be something we would be approving with this. So.
Commissioners, I have a comment.
Yeah, Commissioner Clark.
When I left Salt Lake City in 1995, there were so many vacant buildings. It was a frightening situation. And I've watched, as I go back to visit family, this effort that was made for downtown revitalization, which has happened in a lot of big cities across the country. And the young millennials are moving into the downtowns and living there and creating this walking thing and this living thing going on in evenings. There's not a building to be found in downtown Salt Lake City. The rent you could get for $500 a month in 1995 is now about $3,500 to $4,000 a month. And I think we're remiss in not encouraging people to work and live downtown on a permanent basis. I don't care if he ever leaves that building, as long as the proviso is made that if it's a commercial building, that the business is open X amount of hours a week. Once that certificate of occupancy is granted. And I think that we may want to revisit this idea of having to give special permits to these buildings on those 3 streets. We want to encourage the downtown vibrancy, not have to have them every time they want to do this, have to come in front of us and say, oh my gosh, can I live downtown? And, you know, and one of the other reasons is I rent apartments downtown. I'm really happy to have permanent people because they walk the town, they make it look alive. So that's the comment I wanted to make. I just think that it's a great thing, and thank you for asking that and going to all this trouble. And I don't think we should put a time limit on this gentleman.
Thank you.
So that's my comment.
Yes, agreed, absolutely, absolutely.
So I'll make that motion.
Good.
That we permit this gentleman to go ahead and have your living space downtown I wish you best luck, by the way.
Commissioner Clark, could I ask you to
Sure.
mention
I'll read
the
it.
gentleman's name and the
I
date,
will.
the address of the property?
I will do that. I
Thank
will
you.
rephrase this whole thing.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that Mr. Ingo Hopner is given a special use permit to live and work at an art cafe at 422 North Broadway, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, with no limit on his living quarters, and that, wait a minute, should we require that they have to have an open space though? An open business? Question.
It is zone business.
Well, it is.
It is commercial, but there's some people that live and don't have an open business.
Well, I mean, the special use permit's for the live-work unit, so you're just approving the special use permit.
So it has
as
to be
requested.
live work? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just go with it and then let's take a re-look at this one.
Okay.
Okay, so, that live work art studio on 422 North Broadway, Truth and Consequences, New Mexico.
I have a brilliant motion by Commissioner Clark. Thank you, and thank you for what you said before. I thought it was absolutely well said, right on the dime. And a second by Commissioner Bacher. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carries unanimously. Thank you. Welcome, and I enjoyed your letter. I thought it was absolutely right on the dime. And thank you very much. I think you're a great asset to our community. I-1, discussion action on question of Main Street, Truth and Consequences for the Great Blocks Program. Linda DiMarino is up in Raton attending a Main Street conference, so the presenter is Jasna Brown, who I believe is the secretary of Main Street.
I am the secretary. Thank you, Mayor. And hello again. I will try to be as quick as possible because we've all been here for a while, and I appreciate everybody's time and the public's input. I am here on behalf of Main Street Truth or Consequences. We're part of a New Mexico Main Street organization, which is Main Street is a national nonprofit organization that supports and works on revitalization of downtowns around the country, which we just talked about a little bit. So this particular grant you're probably familiar with because we tried to do this 2 years ago, but we got a little too excited, and our designation for the 3-block area was a little bit larger than 3 blocks. So we did not win this proposal last time, but this time we know more. We changed our designation of what we want to work on, and we have quite a great chance to get the grant this time. So basically, we're applying for the Great Blocks Grant, which is a project. It's a planning project in concert with New Mexico Main Street organization to revitalize a specific 3-block area of the city. So far, the cities that have won are Las Vegas, New Mexico, Tucumcari, Raton, and Belen, and we're hoping to get this grant. They're actually also hoping that we get this grant, and basically what this would provide us with, if it's approved, we'll have shovel-ready plans to basically implement improvements. In this case, we work together with the city to designate that the area that really could benefit from this grant is area of Foch Street between Main and South Broadway as one of our main commercial arteries, and also because of the plans that are in the future for working around that area. So we thought that would be a great place to start. The grant would also, this area was chosen because it would basically be right next to the Hill and Waters Plaza, so we would work off of that success and kind of spread the beauty and around that area. The project basically, as I said, is a planning project, so the funds that we would get through this grant would be to work with engineers and designers that New Mexico Main Street will provide for us. The funding is somewhere in the realm of $70,000. And then once we go through the planning process, the next stage would be implementation, obviously, but the phase 1 is just planning for how to make this area more appealing, more vibrant, and such. And the contingent of the grant is that we need support from the city, financial support. We need $20,000 from the city. We would not be getting that money unless we get approved for the grant. So that's the only contingency. It can also be in dollars or combination of dollars and in kind from the city. But this is one last piece that we need to submit the grant, is that we have the support from the city in the amount of $20,000. And our deadline to submit the grant proposal is August 24th. So that's why we're here today. If you have any questions about the grant in particular, this was presented 2 years ago. I can give you some more details. If you have questions, I'd love to answer them for you.
Commissioner Clark.
Just the one question I'm not really clear on still is this just for design of that section of Faux Street, or is there actually going to be some work done?
So the phase one of the grant is design and planning. So the grant would provide funds to get engineers, planners, designers, to work also with the community together to plan it out. And then the second phase would be getting more funds from different agencies. At this point, it wouldn't be New Mexico Main Street, but they would actually be a key player in allowing us to find other funders like the EDA. So there's federal funds that are available for this as well on phase two. But phase one is planning and design.
I just hate to see a design get shoved into a drawer if, this shows up.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and I think, in the last project, we did partner with Main Street on the bigger project that didn't get funded, but that's an excellent question. And this phase here is only for planning, which Main Street, the New Mexico Main Street will partner with the city and provide funding. But for the actual construction of the project or those improvements will be on the sole efforts of the city, whether it's through local match or through grant funding that will compete with other projects such as Gold, Ninth, and some of the other road projects that were, so keep that in mind, because, that's the direction that myself and staff need, because obviously we have all these great ideas of multiple projects they want to partner with, but realize that they're also competing with some of the other projects the commissioners are authorizing as well.
So, as I'm not an expert on this particular grant, but my understanding is that in phase two, we would have direct help from New Mexico Main Street, the state organization, to identify the funders and funds available on federal and state level to go with phase two, which would be implementation of the project.
Commissioner Clark, if I may. Manager Fuentes and I met with Linda DiMarino, John Masterson, president of Main Street Truth and Consequences, and Tracy Burnett, I believe, was in that meeting, if I'm not mistaken. And so maybe I can, the first question we asked, actually Manager Fuentes asked, do you have any money to put towards this project? Do you have any cash in your balance? And the answer was they were a little bit strapped on cash, so they were looking for the city. The next question we asked was, well, will they accept in kind or other things that we can do so they don't have to write a check, and they tried to call Rich Williams right then in the meeting. He was not available, so we asked Main Street TRC to reach out to Main Street, the state program, to get us an answer. And I saw an email, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jasna, if you've been copied on this, I thought I read that they would not accept in kind. And Manager Fuentes, please chime in on this if I'm wrong. I thought it was $20,000 cash.
My understanding, I wasn't privy to that email, is that it is a combination of in kind and dollars.
Okay, do you remember that?
But I don't have the details.
Mayor, I do.
Okay. And the other thing is, if you read the grant application, I mean, if they have $76,000 or roughly whatever it's going to be invested already in the project, it, I would think, behooves them to turn over every rock, to Manager Fuentes' point, to come up with funding. And the only problem is that that funding might be a resource that we might be going after for another project, here in the city. But we are, I know I copied my fellow commissioners on an email I sent out. I'm not going to mention the name of the person and or the agency, but I asked if, because they would possibly have skin in the game because they might be directly affected, if they would consider helping out the city in possibly cost sharing this for this application. I have not heard back from that agency yet as of this morning. And I agree with you on the one hand. You spend $20,000 and it's let's say it's a $250,000 project and you can't get the $250,000. Is that the best use of taxpayers' $20,000? But on the other hand, I know we have a lot of needs, but if we don't invest in our community, I can't see other agencies investing in it if we're not willing to put some skin in the game. And I understand this $20,000. If we authorize it, if it's voted for, it just means that there's going to have to be $20,000 less in the overall thin pot for other projects. I think we do have the support of Main Street, the state. I mean, obviously, $145,000 came into our community for Healing Waters Plaza. The capital outlay from Representative Rebecca Dow is going to be used to start the beautification of the roads on McAdoo and Sims, and we've reached out to another entity for help with that little piece of the project, and we fortunately were able to get that. Foch seems to be the one piece of the puzzle that is left undone, and that's possibly a major piece, only because our visitor center is located on Foch. Spaceport America's visitor center is located on Foch, and as hopefully, knock on wood, Virgin Galactic moves closer and closer to that first launch, that street and that downtown entire area is going to see a lot of heavy traffic and a lot of foot traffic with a lot of visitors here. So as you all know, I have served on this board for 2 years, for 2 terms. I am still on the board as ex officio, and I am going to ask a legal question, Attorney Rubin. Sure. Since I have no vested interest in Main Street Truth or Consequences other than an emotional tie to that organization, because I think they're doing great work for the city, do I have a right to vote on this? Because if not, we only would have 2 people here to vote because Commissioner Bacher has left.
Okay, so you're stating that you do not have a direct financial or other proprietary interest in the outcome of this vote. Is what you're...
Absolutely. Only that if it goes the way I would like it to go, the city will be the benefit of it.
Is there any concern about any kind of appearance of anything negative? I can't think of
Sir,
anything.
that's why I'm asking you.
Okay. From what you described, I don't see any issue.
Okay, so at least we have enough to have a vote. Okay.
Well, we've got a quorum and you wouldn't recuse yourself?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking about having to recuse yourself?
Yes,
so then we wouldn't have a
yes,
quorum?
because I'm ex officio, which means I attend the meetings, but I don't have a vote at those board meetings.
So a couple of things reading on this grant. The value of the work is $72,000. The applicant is expected to raise another $20,000 for community meetings, marketing, and any contingencies discovered during the development of the project. That's the $20,000 we're being asked for, I assume.
Correct.
And then the selection criteria, there's a couple of things on here that concern me. I'm not saying that this is going to say no. I'm not going to say no to this. But it says, is the project in the adopted metropolitan redevelopment plan, and is the project on the local government's ICIP? So I don't know if that's going to be a ding to you guys or not. but it's definitely not on our ICIP, except for redoing the downtown streets, and maybe we can fudge that a little
Well,
bit.
that was our,
We might have to just say
behind-
that, you know, we're redoing the infrastructure and waters, and that's on the ICIP in a
Mhm.
couple of years. So just be aware that, you know, we have that issue, so you might have to take that into accounting. I'm concerned about the $20,000 because I know we can use it a lot of other places, but I also know that we put an awful lot of money in the Healing Waters Plaza, and that we're putting an awful lot of requests in to redo the infrastructure downtown, and we just moved another man downtown, and do we have the money? That's the question. I guess at the end of the day, do we have the money? And if it doesn't go any further than this, we still have a design that could be used at some point in the future. And I have seen what they did in Raton because I was just there yesterday, and it's really quite nice, you know, when you get some help. So that's basically the end of the day. The question is to you, Manager Fuentes.
Thank you. Mayor and Commissioner Clark, yes, there is funds available in the ending cash balance of the street fund. That would be where these funds would be paid out of if the commissioner approves it. It is a redesigned project, not just of the sidewalk, landscaping, and road, of course. So we can certainly make the argument that is related to street improvements, sidewalks, and everything else. So it would be funded through that fund.
So there is a road that may not get chip sealed or blacktops elsewhere in the city to create this.
Well, Mayor and Commissioner Clark, right now we have the funds available for this particular. Again, depending on what we're looking at as far as overall cost in the downtown road projects, and that will be coming before the commissioner soon. You know, there's only so much, so we'll start chipping away at that ending cash fund balance as these projects move along quick. But right now, as of right now, there's funds available. But after that, then we'll take that off the ending cash balance. So we'll start.
We can't ask you for another $20,000 after this.
Well, what I would, you know, I would certainly be expediting having that presentation come before the commissioners because I foresee having a significant cost improvements for the downtown roads that I want to make the commissioners aware.
Commissioner Ashley, do you have something you want to say?
You know, we've made some great strides recently in the downtown area and the revitalization of it, and the continued revitalization of the downtown area is important, I think, not only this commission, but this community as a whole, so I would like to see it.
Excellent. Any further questions? All right, then I will stand for a motion for approval of the request contingent upon Main Street Truth and Consequences getting the grant.
When do you know if you've received,
The deadline is the
That's
24th
for
of
application.
August. I'm not sure when the response is happening. I don't have that information, but I can get that to you from Linda.
Actually, Commissioner Clark, if my memory serves me correctly, that was a question that Manager Fuentes asked at the meeting, and I thought, and please don't hold me to this, I thought it was a pretty quick turnaround. I mean, I was actually surprised. If that's the same grant I'm thinking about, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, you apply on a Monday and you hear on a Thursday. It's not
It doesn't
exactly
say
like
on the
that.
application.
Yeah, I seem to remember that it has to be, the planning and everything has to be done by June next year. If,
So the grant has to be completed by
Yes.
June of next year, so it is a quick turnaround.
It's going to be quick.
Absolutely.
Would you like to make that motion?
Sure.
Commissioner Ashley?
Great reading. I'd like to move that we approve the request from Main Street, Truth and Consequences for the Great Blocks program, and that we also approve up to $20,000 as a matching fund to further this request.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler.
I'll second that
And a
motion.
second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. And I just want to make a comment. I really appreciate the effort and the time and the due diligence that my fellow commissioners put in to do the research and just not come in here and rubber stamp or say yes or say no. It is obvious, I think, to anyone who attends our meetings, who reads the newspapers, who listens to the radio of this going out over the airway that we all do take this job very, very seriously, and we do the best we can to serve our community and our fellow citizens. So might not be the appropriate time, but I think it's always the appropriate time to thank people for their efforts. And I just want to thank you guys. So thank you for that. The last item is I3, which is discussion action NMML, New Mexico Municipal League Annual Conference Voting Delegate and Alternate, and our presenter is Ms. Renee Cantor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, do you mind if I present from here?
Not at all.
Each year, the league requests a voting delegate for the annual business meeting held at the annual conference. Sure, it'll be in Roswell. That's the person that's responsible for voting on behalf of our municipality on all resolutions and municipal policies and any other questions that are brought up at the annual business meeting. This year, City Manager Fuentes and myself served on the policy committees, and I was the TRC representative appointed to the resolutions committee, which helped set all of those resolutions that will be voted on. And I believe even City Manager Fuentes gave a little report on some of them that we've been really following that happened in his committee. Last year, City Manager Fuentes was a voting delegate and I was the alternate. And 2 years ago, they were reversed, so this year we discussed it, and we don't know unless any other commissioner plans to attend and would like to be the voting delegate. We're recommending that this year I will serve as the voting delegate and City Manager Fuentes be the alternate.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. Any questions, concerns? If not, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mayor Green, I would move that we allow Renee Canton to serve as a delegate and Manager Fuentes as the alternate for the New Mexico Municipal League Annual Conference.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Heschel and a second by Commissioner Clark. Any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, city report, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Let me start off first by addressing some of the concerns about the water leaks. And I did have a staff meeting with Arnie and Ruby from the Water Department, wastewater, and I know they've been working diligently on a lot of the water leaks. And I don't know, Arnie, if you have an update for the commission on the efforts. And I do want to mention to the commission that we did make some internal changes in staff to try to be to respond to these water leaks in a more aggressive, proactive manner. But Arnie will just give a quick overview of what efforts have been undertaken in regards to the water leaks. And then I'll continue with my report.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. So we compiled a list of the water leaks that have been going on out in the community. By the way, Commissioner Clark, your leak has been fixed this morning. So we have, what is it, about 20, the ones that you see in yellow or leaks that have already been fixed by the crew. And I have about 8 that they're still working on. So it's been difficult with turnover in the staff. It's been difficult with, they fix 1 or 2 leaks and it seems like 3 or 4 pop up. So, we've been digging up all the clay pipe and asbestos pipe. This type of pipe has been, they stopped using it back in the 60s. So life expectancy of a water line is usually about 20 to 25 years. If we're digging up clay pipe and asbestos pipe, these lines weren't replaced after their life expectancy. So, excuse me, they're going to start breaking. They're going to start developing leaks. So this is why, Tracy and I and some of the staff have been working on trying to get some funds to replace these water lines. Again, these leaks, they fix 3 or 4 and it seems like they pop up again in different places. So as Manager Fuentes suggested or talked about was the internal changes that we're trying to make, trying to get some more employees with experience out there in the field and trying to get these things done as quick as possible. We have some people in the wastewater that have been helping, but again, turnover and trying to get people in here who are certified and experienced in this type of work has been real difficult. But we're working on it. It's not like, we're not out there, the employees are not out there. They're working out there 8 hours a day trying to fix these leaks.
Thank you. So we'll continue our efforts, Commissioners, in regards to those leaks, and staff is keeping track of all of them that have been reported. So just to continue with my report, I just wanted to kind of project in on the screen some of the projects that we listed in our budget. And I just wanted to give, as we already kind of discussed several times, the Sims-McAdoo Road rehab and the wastewater lines. We have met with the engineers, and as stated earlier, Tracy, myself, and Engineers Inc., along with the Roads Department, Benny Fuentes and Arnie, will be presenting both to the City Commission and the POAB on the status of that project and just some of the things that we foresee coming. And we want to kind of give the Commissioners a really good update on how we're going to be moving forward with that project. The water system, Cook Station and lines, again, as Tracy pointed out, and thank you all for approving the application with NMFA. So we're moving forward with that. Water system improvements, and now we've kind of done a lot of the internal online authorizations. I believe Tracy's going to start working on the application for that USDA, all in the water system. But as Arnie pointed out, a lot of these lines that we have out there, clay lines, older Vestas lines, they're throughout the city. These applications are only for a specific area. It's not covering the entire city, so we're always going to be behind the ball and trying to catch up with all of these aging infrastructure lines that we have out there. The Mount Mountain Tower, Bo Easley and myself met with BLM, and this is in regards to the tower out at Mount Mountain, and I just kind of want to give the Commissioners a quick update and just kind of show, this is a part of the, I believe I reported this a while back ago, this is the current tower out at Mount Mountain that KRWG, some of the stations in Albuquerque are currently, at. But this structure itself has already been condemned. It's old, it's aging, it's rusted. So we initially talked about working with BLM to install a new tower. And that's where we initially thought the location was going to be. Both did get a quote of that new tower, and we're looking at a neighborhood of $80,000. However, there are some existing towers that BLM would ask us as a condition of allowing that tower to remove some of those old existing towers out, to kind of clean it up. They're making an effort to clean up a lot of these sites that have existing towers. So, but what I wanted to bring to the Commissioner's attention is that what we've been working on is, instead of constructing a new tower, this tower way out here is actually in pretty good shape. And we had the folks from KRWG go out there to take a look at that tower, and they feel that they can locate on this tower. But if we're going to remove all of the existing users on the current tower that has been condemned, then we approached BLM and said, look, rather than building a new tower, allow us to use this tower up here. And so they did give us preliminary kind of approval to proceed forward with doing an analysis to make sure this tower is stable enough. There is a guy wire that's holding this tower that needs to be repaired. And but we also, part of the analysis is to make sure that it can hold all of the existing users in the current tower. So if we're able to do that, then that means that we'll keep this higher end tower for all of the users that are up there, and we'll be removing all of these towers, including the one next to the building, which again, hopefully it's going to be less expensive than having to build a new tower. So I just kind of wanted to share that with the Commissioners, because we're continuing to work with BLM and KRWG on that project. And finally, I think Arnie is on the effluent water system, sulfur system that has been installed, and we're waiting on the chemical to come in.
Yes, we're working on some sulfur that makes it work, that was the actual chemical reaction in the water. We're waiting on that. We got a quote, and we've got a second quote, so we'll be processing that.
Okay, excellent. And just finally, on the New Mexico Down DOT roundabouts, we are coordinating with NMDOT on the landscaping, but there's another issue that came up, which is the relocation of the water and the sewer lines that are in the project area that will have to be relocated. So that's something that kind of came up, and we're kind of working through those issues with that. So, well,
Financial help for NMDOT?
we don't know.
Okay.
So, but we are working with them on that. So we'll, as those things progress, we'll bring more information to the commissioners. But those are things that we kind of just, they pop up, and we just have to address them along with the other issues that we have out there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners.
Thank you. All right. Attorney Rubin?
I have no report, thank you.
Chief Aragon, do you have any report? I saw that you're going to have a radio program. Did you start yet?
I did, and you were emailed from city manager.
Excellent.
So it's all on there.
Good. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Ashland?
Yeah, I just have a request for an agenda item, and I'd like to put the city manager evaluation on the next available agenda where we know we're going to have 5 commissioners here. So I guess what we need to do is poll, and I don't know how soon Sammy, Commissioner Whitehead will be available to be here, but maybe check with her, and next time we have 5, we know we're going to have 5 commissioners, but I'd like to see that on the agenda for executive session, that way I can prepare documents.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I get back last night and I'm here this morning, right? Well,
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
then we get big bucks for this. No, I just want to say thank you guys for holding down the fort while I was gone and letting me kind of heal up a little bit, and it's nice to see all your faces, and I appreciate the happy welcome back, and I look forward to having a chat with the new chief, because I haven't had that opportunity. Welcome.
We'll set up a meeting with you too.
They've been trying, and I keep saying no thanks, because I'm a little far away, but I look forward to meeting you. That's all.
Okay, I think this signal card for Sandy. I'll try to keep mine right to the point. I want to thank Representative Rebecca Dow. When Joe McClintock was the executive director of SJOA, he kept complaining that our program here, because it was not run by the city and or the county, but by a nonprofit, was being penalized on the reimbursement from the state on the meals and the transportation programs that they provided. And Joe left and went with the COG, and Carol Tavis came on board, and she kept on working with Representative Rebecca Dow. And Rebecca Dow, representative, carried our water up in the legislature and now got our program, SJOA, which is in town, to be treated as if it were a municipal and or county organization. And therefore, we are now getting additional funds for it. The funds have been doubled for the reimbursement for the food and for the transportation. And I am hoping, I'm glad to hear that. That is amazing. And I am hoping that that makes SJOA whole without necessarily the ongoing financial support that is needed by the city and the county. So congratulations to Joe and Carol for your perseverance, and Representative Rebecca Dow for taking it across the finish line. I want to congratulate Mark Hedge and his group, the Hot Springs High School Scat Cats, for their 4th in the nation finish in the Enviathon competition. I mean, every year when we go out, we've got this small high school in our community, 72, 75, maybe 90 students graduating, and we come in second, first, third, fourth. There were a lot of firsts and seconds individually. So congratulations to those students that were involved. I want to thank Latitude 33. It was their 5th anniversary, and they partnered with the brewery, and we had an open house at the brewery on Sunday. There must have been probably 200 people there at one time or another, and it was a fundraiser for the Friends of the Pool. And Latitude 33, because I asked Randall Lawson, are they going to take the food out, whatever left is the fundraiser? And he said, no. To the best of his knowledge, they're donating everything. And I think that's above and beyond the call and incredibly generous to support an initiative that is ongoing in our community. So thank you, Latitude 33, and also the brewery for making that space available. The other thing I do have, Manager Fuentes, is I was down at the Ralph Edwards Park. And I think, from my observation, we're getting more dirt than we are grass. And maybe at the next city commission meeting, if there is a plan that the Parks Department has for moving forward on some of the issues that we are facing with our parks, I think it might be interesting for the commission to hear that. And if we're going to address reseeding the park, what that entails and everything else. So if we could hear from that, I'd appreciate that. That is the end of my report. I will need a motion to go into executive session, please.
Make that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clark to go into executive session. I need a second.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Heschler. Might we have roll call, please, Madam Clerk?
Honorable Steve Green,
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent, Honorable Ralph Fischler,
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark. Honorable Paul Baca is absent.
Carries. We are in executive session. Thank you all for attending. I'll wait till Renee tells me to go ahead.
Okay, good.
Okay, we're back in open session, and I will stipulate that the commission went into executive session to discuss threatened or pending litigation, City versus McGeechee pursuant to 10-15-1, 8, parentheses, H.7. Discussion incurred and no vote was taken. Is there a motion to be entertained, or we will adjourn? Someone want to make a motion?
Mayor, I'd like to move that in regards to City to the Consequences versus Susan McGeechee, that the latest mediation agreement sent to us by the mediator be accepted as our final mediation point, and that if this is not accepted by the other party, Mr. McGeechee, that we go ahead and proceed to court.
So I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler and a second by Commissioner Clark. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carries unanimously.
I
Long
move
meeting,
that
good meeting.
this meeting be adjourned.
Hey, Kath, real quick. Hey.
I did.
Thanks, everybody.
I didn't know what my.
Did you rehearse the originals?
No, it's in the,
Right. Just talk to her, yeah.